American Comics, opening sign in Accelerator. Chapter 151 Skye's Awakening, Ying's Conspiracy. With the change of the obelisk, Ying became more and more excited. It's finally started. PSST. At this moment, a blue gas suddenly diffused out from the obelisk. When the blue gas came into contact with Levi's body, he wanted to crawl into Levi's body, but was isolated by the Victor operation. The Mist of Terrigen. This is a genetic medicine developed by the Kree. Its function is to awaken the Inhumans to ability. However, this Mist of Terrigen is a deadly poison to ordinary people, and any ordinary person can petrify him on the spot with just one inhalation. After the fog came over, Levi's keenly found that Mr. Hyde had already put on a gas mask from nowhere. This fog did no harm to the awakened Inhumans. But for Skye 553 who has not awakened, it is the opportunity for her to metamorphosis. If he hadn't known that Skye could awaken this super ability, he would never have awakened Skye. After all, the awakening of the Inhumans has many drawbacks. For example, Gordon was blinded in both eyes because he was awakened to teleportation. This flawed awakening is like the awakening potion that Mr. Hyde developed. It is impossible for Ying to not know that the Terrigen mist is highly toxic to people other than Inhumans, so she did it on purpose. Levi's eyes narrowed slightly. At this moment, Skye suddenly screamed. After inhaling these inexplicable gases, she found that her body began to slowly petrify. Skye, don't be afraid. This is the change of your ability to awaken as an Inhuman, so you will be fine if you are afraid. Levi's comforted softly. Skye was relieved when he heard his words. However, the next moment she was completely petrified. Levi's was not too worried, turned to look at Ying, saw that she had walked to the obelisk, and then grabbed it. After touching the obelisk, a dazzling light suddenly erupted from the surface of the obelisk. The light shot on the surrounding slate, and in an instant, pictures appeared on the slate. These pictures are exactly after the Kree came to the Earth, creating the picture of the Inhumans, and even the scene of the Kree fighting with the ancestor mutants. In fact, the Inhumans are actually researched by the Kree based on mutant genes, but due to various defects, the Kree finally gave up the Inhumans. In this way, the technology of the Inhumans is indeed of great help in how to awaken the X gene to become a mutant. Thinking of this, Levi's eyes lit up, and it seemed that this time it was not in vain. However, at this moment, Ying suddenly controlled the obelisk to draw several strange runes. Immediately afterwards, the runes formed a light cell beside Levi's, trapping him in it. It seems that the technology of the Kree people has made you little inflated. Levi's folded his arms and smiled at Ying's ugly face. Ha 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 tilde, I know you are very strong, you are a 5th level mutant that I have never seen before. But this is the research laboratory of the Kree people. Naturally, it has prepared a lot of abilities to subdue mutants. Even if you are a 5th level mutant, even mutants can't break free. Ying laughed smugly, as if the conspiracy had succeeded. It seems that your ambitions are completely exposed. 99. Levi's still sneered without any worries. Yes, I do have ambitions. Do you think I came to the Kree ruins by all means to get the research materials here? Wrong. Big mistake. Ying laughed with a crazy expression on her face. This is a beautiful world for human beings, but it will soon be gone, and soon there will be only Inhumans left in this world. That idiot in Whitehall was always looking for the obelisk because he thought it was a weapon powerful enough to destroy the world, but he only knew half of it. Having said that, Ying looked at Levi's again and said, you should also know the effect of the Terrigen mist. Ordinary people will be completely petrified by inhaling this mist, and even mutants will not see this for long. And in the ruins left by the Kree, there are still a lot of Terrigen fog that the Kree did not use. Originally, the Kree intended to use these Terrigen mists to conduct an experiment on the entire Earth, but finally gave up. So it's cheap for me. As long as the Terrigen fog spreads out, then all the human beings on the entire Earth will be petrified. Ha 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 tilde 35. Ying proudly revealed her ultimate goal. In fact, she planned to do so from the beginning. As long as Levi's was trapped, then everything here would belong to her. And it can force Levi's, the 5th level mutant, to submit to her. Thinking of this, Ying couldn't help laughing anymore. After listening to her words, Mr. Hyde's expression became very exciting. He had no idea that Ying's purpose was to destroy all mankind. The expressions of Lincoln and Gordon are also different. Lincoln was a little dazed. Obviously he didn't know Ying's purpose. Gordon, on the other hand, showed no expression, and it seemed that he already knew Ying's plan. What did I say that the means you left in the Kree ruins can stop a 5th level mutant? Have you ever seen the power of a 5th level mutant? And who said I'm just a 5th level mutant? Already? Levi's asked a few questions with extremely disdain in his eyes. Without waiting for Ying to answer, he stepped lightly on his feet, and the vector operation started at the moment. Boom. The entire ruin vibrated violently at the moment. Tilde. Cobweb-like cracks suddenly appeared on the ground, and then the cracks expanded. The rune-light prison that had trapped Levi's shattered in an instant. The so-called Inhumans are just the mutants created by the Kree people based on the Celestials, and they are only the defective products that have been researched. How do you compare to mutants? And this light prison is not set up to trap the 5th level mutants. I am afraid it is to trap the Inhumans. 4.1. Otherwise, it will not be broken so clearly. How is this possible? Ying, who had just stood firm, had a look of horror on her face. She did not expect that the technology of the Kree people would not be able to trap Levi's at all. Now her plan was completely disrupted. Just when she was still thinking about retreating, Levi's had already come over, and he was too lazy to play such tricks with Ying. If it weren't for the fact that she was Skye's mother, she would have been controlled by telepathy. Now that Ying has done such a thing, no one can say anything even if he takes action against it. To put it simply, Levi's originally wanted to do something to Ying, but after establishing a relationship with Skye, he lacked an excuse to deal with Ying. And now there is an excuse. Chapter 152 Controlling the Kree Ruins and Controlling the Inhumans. However, at this moment, Mr. Hyde stood in front of him. Galvin, hurry up, hold him back, just give me some more time to make it work. Ying was a little surprised when she saw Hyde standing in front of her. After speaking, she turned around and started to operate. No matter what, she will use the Terrigen Mist to destroy all human beings in the world. Levi's frowned at Hyde in front of him, and when he was about to start, he saw Hyde suddenly turn around and hug Ying. What are you doing? Ying was stunned for a moment, then frantically struggled. Seeing this, Lincoln and Gordon, who were on the side, stepped forward, but they found that their bodies suddenly couldn't move. Let go of me, Galvin. Ying still wanted to struggle, but was knocked unconscious by Mr. Hyde with a knife. Levi's looked at this scene with some surprise. It seems that Hyde did not participate in this matter. Feel sorry. Hyde turned around and apologized to Levi's, his eyes blurred as if lost in memory. Actually, when I first met Ying, she was very simple and kind. At that time, I was deeply attracted to her. 39. But all this changed with the conspiracy of Hydra. It was Whitehall. He captured G22 Ying and dissected her, and since then Ying has changed, full of hatred for human beings. Changed. You have to do whatever you can to achieve your goals. Speaking of which, Mr. Hyde looked guilty. If he had had great power back then, perhaps this kind of thing would not have happened. But it's too late now. Levi's couldn't help sighing when he heard what he said. Having experienced that kind of inhumane treatment, Ying Yui and Blacken are also excusable. There isn't more than one Blacken like this. For example, Rebecca with space reversal is one of them, but after being modified by Levi's, she can now live like a normal mutant. Perhaps, I can give you a kind Ying. What are you going to do? Hearing his words, Mr. Hyde was startled. He would definitely be very willing if he could make Ying return to her original state. But if she wanted to hurt Ying, he would definitely not agree. You should know that I have the super ability of telepathy, just need to delete her unpleasant memory before. 39 Levi's explained. Hyde frowned and thought for a moment, then seriously said, I agree. But you can't deprive her of my memory. The question is simple. Levi's clicked his fingers, and then directly used telepathy to modify Ying's memory. The memory of being tortured by Whitehall must be deleted, leaving only the memory of Ying meeting Hyde after leaving the Inhumans. Definitely, his purpose is not just to modify her memory, but the most important thing is to directly control Ying. As long as you control Ying, it is equivalent to controlling the entire Inhuman race. After a while, the memory modification of Ying was finally completed. How? Did it work? Why hasn't she woken up yet? Mr. Hyde asked anxiously. The memory has been revised, and it will definitely be the kind and gentle wife you like. As for why she hasn't woken up yet, this has nothing to do with me. You beat yourself up. Finally, Levi's rolled his eyes. When Hyde heard this, he scratched his head a little embarrassedly. It was true that he knocked Ying unconscious just now. It was at this moment that the rocks all over Skye, who had been protected by Levi's, suddenly clicked. Immediately afterwards, all the rocks surrounding her were shaken away. 35 Skye, who opened his eyes, saw Levi's in front of him, and rushed over to hug him tightly. Congratulations, Skye, you have successfully awakened super ability. 35 Levi smiled and congratulated. Well, I do feel a strange power. Skye let go of his hands in amazement. She found that her hands had a kind of magical power, as if they could shake everything. Very magical. That's right, that's your power. Very useful power. Levi seemed to think of something, and a big smile appeared on his face. How do you feel that my ability is similar to your nasty ability? Skye said strangely. It's just your illusion. Levi's was a little ashamed, but he didn't expect Skye to have guessed it. Ying, you finally woke up. At this moment, Hyde behind him suddenly shouted in surprise. The two turned their heads and saw that Ying woke up from Hyde's arms in a daze. What's wrong with her, Mum? Skye asked with some doubts. It's nothing, let's go. Presumably now she must be a good mother. Levi smiled mysteriously. Skye heard the words a little strange, but walked over anyway. Ying, are you alright? Sorry for worrying you. 99 Ying touched Hyde's face gently, then stood up and gave Skye a warm embrace. This reaction made Skye stunned for a moment. The gentle Ying was written on her face. Are you sure it was the mother who didn't care about her feelings just now? But that's fine too. Levi's couldn't help but smile when he saw the three of them become happy. After XU 553 changed Ying's memory, she is now the patriarch of the Inhumans, and a gentle and kind wife and mother. At the same time, the heart will also subconsciously focus on the interests of the mutants. In this way, the next thing will be easier to do. With Ying's efforts, a month later, she finally unlocked all the data in the Kree ruins. Then Levi's directly sent these research data back to the X-Gene underground research base. Immediately afterwards, Hyde also joined the research on the X-Gene. Skye, who had just gained family affection, decided to stay with Ying in the secluded place of the Inhumans for a while. During this time, the X-Men also had a new job, which was to cooperate with the Inhumans to develop the Kree ruins. The Kree ruins are very large, far beyond the central core area, and this Kree ruins are very secretive and can also be used as a secret base if necessary. No one else knows about this place except Whitehall. As a result, Levi made a special trip to solve all the forces of Whitehall. At the same time, Whitehall was handed over to Ying. Although Ying's memory was modified, she was still very angry when she saw Whitehall again. In the end, Whitehall's end was very tragic. Chapter 153 Hawaii Vacation, Skull Island. After the Kree research materials and the addition of Mr. Hyde, the X-Gene research has also accelerated a lot. However, it will take a lot of time to understand the research data of the Kree people. If you want to produce research results, it will take at least half a year. On the other hand, after taking over the Skye battleship plan, Sister Misaka has already begun to build various large robotic arms. There are no scientists in this program, just a lot of construction workers. Because Miss Misaka has replaced most of the scientists, she only needs to build the robotic arm, then Miss Misaka can build the Skye battleship herself. And with the technology Levi's brought back from Future Reversal, it's only a matter of time before we want to build a Skye battleship. At the same time, the plot of Avengers is about to start, and the New York War is about to begin. It would be great if the X-Gene Awakening potion could be obtained before then. Before that, Levi's decided to take Lorna and the others on a beach vacation. Hey, babes, have you packed everything? In the Mutant Academy, Levi's waited helplessly at the door of the girls' dormitory. After telling them to take them to Hawaii for vacation yesterday, the children were so excited that they didn't sleep for one night, which made Levi's tired for one night. Until the afternoon, the girls still hadn't packed their things. The sun is about to set at this rate. Due to Tilda, Levi's picked up the phone and saw that Skye was calling. Hey, Skye, are you ready? Do you want me to pick you up now? Dear, I'm ready. Come over here. Skye couldn't help chuckling over the phone. Okay, I'll be right over here. Levi's hung up the phone. Babies, I'm going to pick up Skye. You guys are ready? Tilda. Got it. Go now. When you come back, we must be ready. 55. Several female voices came from inside the house. About Skye, they had already heard Katie say it, and this result was what they expected. Anyway, Levi's is so fierce, it's better to have one more person to share. Hearing the voices of the girls, Levi's nodded with satisfaction, then clicked his fingers to open a portal. On the other side of the portal, it was Skye's room. Baby Skye, hasn't seen you for a few days. Have you missed me? Levi's came to Skye in a flash and picked her up. PSSD tilde long time no see. Didn't I see you the other day? Skye was a little amused, but still gave him a sweet kiss. Cough tilde. Just when the two were tired, they didn't expect Ying to appear at the door. Skye suddenly came down from his arms with embarrassment. That Levi's was a little embarrassed, but he didn't expect to be caught. Vice, Daisy must be safe when she goes out, you know? Ying reminded with a gentle smile. I'll pay attention. Hearing this, Levi's was even more embarrassed, and he definitely understood the potential meaning of these words. But so far, he has no idea of wearing an umbrella, and Lorna and Clarice's tummies haven't moved, so it's definitely not his fault. He guessed that after the body merged with the Phoenix to become a higher life, the life essence was too powerful, and Lorna and the others were completely unable to conceive. Fortunately, he was not in a hurry in this regard, so he ignored it. Skye on the side definitely understood what her mother meant, and her face turned slightly red. Okay, I won't say too much, you go. Ying didn't talk too much, and left after exhorting. Hey tilde baby, you've packed everything, let's go. Seeing Ying leave, Levi's immediately hugged Skye by the waist, then made a salute and left the room through the portal. Back at the Mutant Academy, Lorna, Clarice, Naughty, Katie and Lauren are all ready. Everyone was ready to go, and Cyclops and Wolverine also came out to see them off. Hey tilde boy, it's already 6, can you handle that much? Logan whispered to the side while hooking his neck. Definitely no problem. I let them beg for mercy every night, Levi's said with a proud smile. Oh? Logan looked suspicious, obviously disbelieving. You don't believe me, Wolverine? You can't do it? Levi's quipped. Who said no? I also ask Silver Fox to beg for mercy every night. 35 Logan explained with a straight face. Yes, this time it was Levi's turn to disbelieve. Logan is now older than both Professor X and Magneto by age, at least in his 80s and 90s. This age can make Silver Fox beg for mercy. He is very disbelieving. Could that place be filled with adamantium too? That's bullshit. Let's go. 35. At this time, Lorna and the others had already said goodbye to everyone. Alright then, let's go. Hawaii. At the moment, the temperature here is between 20 and 30 degrees, which is very suitable for vacation. And Levi's had already asked the Cuckoo sisters to buy a seaside villa here, and there was a Chanshan, Lilihao, beach near the villa. As a privilege of the rich, no one else bothers here. Huh? Sophie, why are you here? When they came to the villa Raw, they found the two sisters Esm and Maffei were here. Esm and Sophie smiled slightly. Master, during your vacation, we will serve as housekeepers. You can tell us any requests you have. Serve as a butler? Levi's pouted and said this when you are not wearing swimsuits. Lorna and the others could only look at each other helplessly. But soon, this depressed mood disappeared. At the moment the sun sets on the beach in front of the villa, the scenery is really beautiful. Levi's directly let everyone start a barbecue on the beach together. Chapter 154 Skull Island, King Kong. The time spent on vacation by the sea is very pleasant, but it doesn't feel fun after a long time. It's been a month since I came to Hawaii for vacation. During this time, Levi's and everyone also had a good time to relax. However, they are tired of playing at the beach all the time. Today, they plan to spend their last day at the beach and go back to the Mutant Academy tomorrow. On the beach, Levi's lay on a beach chair, basking lazily with sunglasses on. Not far away Lorna and Clarice are playing beach volleyball. At this moment, Skye suddenly noticed a series of planes flying in the sky. It's AH-1's Viper. Where are they going? What's wrong with you, Skye? It's your turn to play. At this time Lauren came over, and she followed Skye's gaze, and saw 12 planes flying by and quickly disappearing. Oh well. Skye didn't care about those planes, and immediately started 2v2 beach volleyball. Levi's, who was sunbathing on the beach chair, also noticed these planes. He knew the AH-1's Viper, which was the gunship used by the ugly Marine Corps. As for why he was here, he was more curious. Thinking of this, he used telepathy to find 557 to these planes in an instant, and then controlled a non-commissioned officer who seemed to have a relatively high rank. After checking the other party's memory, Leviston was shocked. On the small island shrouded in thundercloud storms, it is said that there is still this giant beast on the small island, and some people have even seen a giant gorilla more than 10 meters high. When Levi's got this information, his first reaction was to watch a movie called Kong Skull Island. According to the information known to the sergeant, it seems very similar to Kong Skull Island. But whether it is Skull Island or not, you still need to see it with your own eyes. At the moment Levi's already has the vision of the controlled non-commissioned officer. It can be said that the non-commissioned officer of at the moment is himself. He glanced at it and saw that there were 5 other people in the cabin. Among them, the co-pilot of the plane was a black man who looked like Nick Fury. If I remember correctly, this black man is Colonel Packard, the captain of the Tango helicopter attack team, and the soul of the team. This also allowed him to determine that the place where these people were going was King Kong Skull Island. Levi's was a little surprised, didn't expect that there is still King Kong in this world. So, is the Godzilla? Or maybe the monsters in the Pacific Rim will pop out at some point. That would be fun. The speed of the gunships was not slow, and about 2 hours later, a thundercloud storm blocked them. We're up, facing the unknown thundercloud storm ahead. Colonel Packard did not have any timidity, and all the armed helicopters plunged into it under his order. After entering the thundercloud storm, the entire sky darkened, and thunder flashed around all the time, which made people startled. Fortunately, there are lightning protection devices on the plane. After the thrilling through the thundercloud storm, in an instant, it was like rain over the sky, and the dazzling sunlight made everyone feel like they were after a catastrophe. But everything in front of them made everyone forget the thrilling moment just now. What they saw in front of them was an ecologically beautiful island. The island was lined with lush green trees, which was really a rare sight. Everyone on the helicopter also made a raw sound. The non-commissioned officer controlled by Levi's couldn't help but smile. Look for a landing spot, prepare to land. Colonel Packard gave orders in the communicator. Immediately afterwards, the crowd was divided into 2 sides. One side was the archaeological team. They found an open space in the woods and landed. The soldier team on the other side began to drop shock bombs on the island to detect the island's geology. The sergeant under Levi's control is on the plane from which the shock bomb was dropped. As the concussion bombs exploded, the entire island shook slightly. It should be out soon. Levi's was thinking about this when he saw a tree in the distance shot towards the helicopter beside him like an arrow. Boom. There is no doubt that the helicopter was directly penetrated by the trees, and a violent explosion occurred immediately. This scene made all the soldiers stunned. However, before they could return to their senses, a big hand suddenly appeared beside the Skye. There was no time to react, and the 2 planes were directly caught. Sure enough, it was King Kong. and Levi's eyes suddenly lit up. I saw a gigantic orangutan appearing in front of me. Its height was about 35 meters, and it was about 10 stories tall. It looked really mighty and domineering. Moreover, the current King Kong is only a child. If he is an adult, he is at least 100 meters tall, which is really a giant. What made him speechless was that the non-commissioned officer he controlled was directly eaten by King Kong. But it doesn't matter, it's the same for a soldier to control. At this time, Colonel Packard could not contact the 3 planes that dropped the shock bombs and knew that something had happened. Immediately afterwards, all the helicopters took off, but in front of them was King Kong, the size of a mountain. Oh my god, what the hell is this? This should be a gorilla. Why is it so big? Damn, there are real monsters. Is this what killed the hamsters? I want to avenge them. FKS, I'm the boss. Set up the cordon, and keep the guns ready. 39. 3 helicopters were destroyed, and Colonel Packard, infuriated by the death of the soldier, gave the order to attack. Without a word, get ready to fire. With a roar from Colonel Packard, the next moment all the helicopters opened fire. Bang 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 bang. Countless bullets shot towards King Kong, causing it to roar again and again. Although the firearms on the helicopter are much more powerful than ordinary firearms, they are not a big threat to King Kong, and at most they only cause him to suffer skin trauma. And this completely angered King Kong, and he waved his fist directly, smashing a helicopter with one punch. The violent explosion shocked everyone. Retreat. Retreat. I don't obey your orders. Get us out of here. Fox number 9 was taken down. There was chaos in the communicator, and everyone panicked at this moment. However, at this very moment, several more helicopters were destroyed. Chapter 155. What does it feel like to be friends with King Kong? Attack. Kill this guy for me. Seeing that half of the soldier squad was wiped out in the blink of an eye, Colonel Packard's anger had already overwhelmed his head, and he was shooting frantically with a machine gun. However, these bullets are just another tickling for King Kong. At the same time, it also attracted the attention of King Kong. In an instant, a slap slapped over, and the propeller of the helicopter simply cut into King Kong's palm, allowing him to recover most of his power. But raw as so, the helicopter was also forced to crash. Fortunately, Colonel Packard did not die, but seeing that all the helicopters were destroyed, and most of the soldiers were destroyed, this hatred was already planted in his heart. Because the helicopters all crashed, most of the people were separated. The soldiers controlled by Levi's failed to escape and were directly killed by the plane explosion. He was wondering if he was too unlucky. Every time the soldiers he controlled were killed. However, this time he did not continue to control the soldiers, but controlled a young guy with a red head on the archaeological team, whose name was Slivko. At the moment, the archaeological team and the soldiers were separated, and there were only 6 people left in their group. The protagonist James, female reporter Weaver, a black guy, and a middle-aged archaeology professor. Finally, there is the archaeologist Shan, whose appearance is very similar to Shan, a girl who loves adventure and archaeology. The original is very marginal, almost a trick. The group walked silently by the river. At the moment everyone's heart is very heavy. After all, their plane crashed. How to leave the island now is a problem. And there are too many dangers on this island, and no one can take it easy. At this moment, the river on the side suddenly moved, and then a behemoth appeared in front of everyone. Everyone was so frightened that they raised the firearms in their hands to be vigilant. Everyone, don't move, calm down. James, who led the team, was still relatively calm. However, Levi's had no intention of raising a gun at all, and he looked at the big buffalo in front of him with interest. Remember that this big buffalo is called the Lonely Reef Bull Demon. It is a herbivorous animal with a docile personality. If it is not provoked, it will not launch an attack. As predicted, after the Lonely Reef Bull Demon looked at them, he turned and left. Hey, this big guy looks like a normal buffalo, just don't know how the meat is. Seeing that everyone was angry and a little dignified, Levi's laughed and made a joke. When everyone heard what he said, they almost laughed. They were all worried, but he didn't expect that he still wanted to eat the meat of the monster in front of him. You can eat meat if you want, but don't take us with you. James rolled his eyes and turned away. The female reporter Weaver forcibly followed up with a smile. Hey, Silphko has never seen you joke like this before. Shouldn't you be the most nervous when you meet this kind of monster? Shan couldn't help joking. Nervous? How is it possible? I can bake and eat this kind of monster. 55. Levi's waved his hand, but he didn't continue to show anything. His performance just now was indeed different from Slivko, and it was normal to cause others to doubt. Boast. Shan helplessly shook her head and ignored him. The group moved on and soon found the Aboriginal camp, where they were greeted by a veteran named Mark Hank. At this point Levi's withdrew control of Slivko. Now that the sky has darkened, the number of his sign-ins today has not been used, and if he signed the target, he has already decided, that is King Kong. We're going to have a barbecue. Do you want to join us? 39. At this moment Clarice ran over. Oh. Let's grill first. I have some things to leave. I will be back soon. Remember to leave some for me. With that, Levi's kissed Clarice on the cheek and disappeared on the beach. Huh? Clarice, where's 35? Lorna and the others were a little curious when they saw that only Clarice came here. Vice, he left. He said something, but he should be back soon. Clarice explained helplessly. Then let's ignore him. Let's grill first. Lorna didn't care either, because Levi's would disappear for a while every day during this time, and would come back soon. So they are not surprised. The other side. Levi's used space to move to Skull Island, and telepathically found King Kong's location in an instant. At the moment, this big guy is holding the octopus legs and eating it. Hey, big guy. Levi's came to King Kong and made a trick roar with a smile. When King Kong, who was eating octopus legs, saw him appear, he was stunned for a moment, and then roared, as if warning him. The language is a little bit different, but that's okay. Levi speaks of communicating directly with King Kong using telepathy. Hey, how are you guys? 5. What are you? King Kong's wisdom is not low, no less than that of ordinary adults, but the way he speaks is a bit speechless. I'm not. 99. The corners of Levi's mouth twitched slightly, almost hitting the other side. I am human, to help you. Help me? Humans will only destroy homes. This time, King Kong's words were more fluent, but it was obvious that he did not believe in foreign humans. After all, the injuries on his body were left by humans. No, there are actually good people in human beings too. For example, those natives. Levi's explained with a smile. The indigenous people on the island were able to survive because of the protection of King Kong. Otherwise, they would have been hunted and killed by various monsters. King Kong was silent for a while after hearing this, as if he was thinking about something. Suddenly he roared softly. I believe you are a good man, to give you. King Kong actually handed over an octopus leg that was thicker than Levi's forehead. Levi's mouth twitched slightly, but he still used psychokinesis to take it. He rolled his eyes, and then a flame appeared under the octopus's legs, and he started to grill just like that. King Kong was still a little wary when he saw the flames that suddenly appeared, but after seeing that the flames did not harm it, he relaxed his vigilance, at the same time curiously watching the flame-grilled octopus legs. After a while the whole octopus leg emits a tempting aroma. Levi's, after seeing the test, used molecular manipulation to create various seasonings to sprinkle on top. Suddenly, an even more attractive scent came. King Kong couldn't help drooling when he smelled this fragrance. Raw. I want this. King Kong was rude and very direct to ask for it. Chapter 156. Sign into King Kong, gigantic. Levi's was a little funny when he saw this, but he originally baked it for King Kong. After all, he couldn't eat such a big octopus leg. Go then. 35. Hearing this, King Kong happily took the grilled octopus leg and stuffed it into his mouth. Raw. After eating the roasted octopus legs, King Kong jumped up and down happily, like a child of several years old. I still want to eat. After eating the roasted octopus legs, King Kong could no longer eat the raw octopus legs, and saw that he raised all the octopuses under him in front of Levi's and looked at him pleadingly. No problem. Anyway, 557 is just a casual thing. Levi's thought it was interesting and agreed. Using flame manipulation, the whole octopus is cooked in just a moment. When King Kong saw this, he ate a lot. Levi's kept some octopus legs, ready to take back to Lorna and the others. At the same time he also signed on King Kong. Ding. Does the host sign into King Kong? Double experience or super ability? Sign into super ability. Ding. Sign-in is successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the super ability Giant, with 100 experience points. As you can tell from the name, Giant is a super ability that can make the body swell and grow bigger. With Levi's current level 5 mutant strength, if he exerts his full strength, he can become a 100-meter giant. And after the giant, his power will become very strong, at least a few hundred times the power increase. This is really scary, to know that his original strength is not weak. Once it becomes huge, then his strength can be imagined. The Hulk was just a little bit in front of him. Levi's nodded with satisfaction. This super ability is still very good. But does he have to ask Dr. Banner for a pair of pants? Otherwise, you won't be able to be naked after getting bigger? Well, that's a question to ponder. Looking at the crunch of King Kong's food, Levi's raised his eyebrows. He was wondering if he could take this guy as a elf. A pet. When the time comes to fight, just put King Kong directly, which can definitely startle the other party. Definitely, this is just thinking about it. After all, King Kong is too big, and walking around the city will cause huge amounts of damage. King Kong, I'm leaving. When King Kong, who had just finished eating the grilled octopus leg, heard this, he roared softly, his eyes filled with reluctance, and after a while, he had regarded Levi's as his best friend. Will you still come? Definitely, I'll be back in a few days. 99. Levi's is also planning to check in on Skull Island and will definitely be back. When King Kong heard his words, he was also a little happy. Okay, let me treat the injury on your arm before leaving. The bullets from the helicopter did not cause much damage to King Kong, but the propeller on the helicopter injured his palms and arms. Levi's came to King Kong's arm and then used molecular manipulation, but he recovered King Kong's injuries in an instant. Raw tilde. Seeing that the pain in his arm is gone, King Kong roared lightly and was very happy. Thank you, my friend. Hearing this, Levi's was a little surprised, but he didn't expect King Kong to know a friend. Haha Tilda, you're welcome, then I'll go first, bye. 55. Levi's laughed and waved his hand, then disappeared in front of King Kong. Seeing that he suddenly disappeared, King Kong was stunned for a moment, and immediately lay on the ground to rest. The other side. Levi's is back on the beach. Vice, why did it take you so long to come back? I have grilled squid for you, come and eat. 35. Seeing him come back, Lorna hurriedly brought some grilled squid over. I actually grilled some squid too. No, octopus. Levi's used psychokinesis to drag the octopus legs that he had just grilled before everyone. Is this really an octopus leg? The girls looked at each other when they saw the thicker-than-human octopus legs beside him. Too big? No problem. Levi's waved his hand, and the octopus legs instantly turned into file-size skewers. Not to mention the octopus legs of this giant octopus, the meat is very tender and crunchy. While eating octopus barbecue, Lorna and Katie asked about it too. Levi's did not hide it and told them about Skull Island and King Kong. Several people learned that there is such a magical creature as King Kong in this world, and none of them mentioned the matter of going back tomorrow, and they all said that they would go to Skull Island with him tomorrow. The next day, early in the morning, Levi's went out on the beach full of energy, and then went back to the house on 4.1 to wake up his children. Snapped. Lorna is about to wake up. 39. No, I still want to sleep, Lorna said in a daze and fell asleep again. Clarice is getting up soon. Didn't you say you were going to see King Kong yesterday? Levi's pushed Clarice and said, no, my whole body seems to be falling apart and I can't move. Clarice just got ready, but fell down again. Skye is getting up soon. No. Looking at a child who was unwilling to get up, Leviston was speechless. Chapter 157. Treat King Kong as a pet and kill the soldiers squad. It was clear yesterday that I had agreed to go to Skull Island to see King Kong, but I didn't expect everyone to be so sleepy. Forget it, go by yourself. After thinking about it, Levi's didn't bother to wait for them, so he could go to see King Kong first, and then come back to pick them up. Open the portal. Levi's went back to where he had Takoyaki with Kong last night, but Kong was not here. Tilda. Suddenly a scream came from not far away, and he curiously used perspective to look over. I saw that in the forest not far away, a huge amount of spider was preying on a few soldiers led by Colonel Packard. After many dangers, there were only 7 soldiers left in the squad. However, under the attack of this huge amount of spider, the soldier team lost 1 person again. Levi scratched his chin and thought, this time the expedition was not easy. The archaeologist named Professor Lander was a member of an imperial organization. This organization has been looking for traces of the existence of monsters, and what makes him care is that Godzilla seems to be discovered by this group of people. Even the Emperor organization also built mechanical Godzilla out. It can be seen that the technology is very unusual. It seems that after going back this time, this news also needs to be investigated. Levi's looked at the soldiers in the squad again. These people must not let them bring back the news of King Kong, otherwise this island will be exposed to the eyes of the whole world. At that time, King Kong will be in danger. This is the pet that he has reserved. Thinking of this, he couldn't help showing a sneer recently. At the moment in a bamboo forest, the soldier team finally killed the giant spider that attacked them, but unfortunately they sacrificed 1 person again. After a moment of silence, Colonel Packard could only let the dead soldiers be temporarily buried here. After the burial was over, the soldiers continued to move forward with heavy steps. At the moment they walked by the river, where the terrain is wide, and they are no longer afraid of spiders from the sky. However, at this moment, a circle of ripples suddenly appeared in the water. Hey, what are you looking at? Professor Lander keenly noticed the movement in the water not far away. Everyone heard his words and followed his gaze. On the sparkling river not far away before, small black dots swam from a distance. Seeing this, Colonel Packard hurriedly picked up the binoculars to observe, and then his face changed greatly and he shouted, quick, it's a giant snake. When the soldiers heard this, their scalps went numb, because at this time, they could also see the figure of the giant snake, only to see a giant snake that was thicker than a human body and covered with patterns swimming over on the river surface. At this moment, everyone died. Run! I don't know who shouted, and then Colonel Packard took the lead and ran up the mountain, and the soldiers followed closely behind. However, Professor Lander, who was already in the middle of the year, could not run a little, and soon he was overtaken by the giant snake. Wait, Tilda, help me! When Colonel Packard heard the cry for help, he turned his head to look, and saw that Professor Lander's entire body was instantly engulfed by the snake tide, and at first glance, he was helpless. Now that he can't protect himself, there is no time to save others, and it is Professor Lander's entrustment that they will come to this place of death. Colonel Packard wanted him to die. Soon Professor Lander's screams disappeared. However, Colonel Packard was not rejoiced, because the giant snakes were still chasing after him. Colonel Packard saved me. At this time, a soldier who was injured when he had just killed the spider suddenly fell to the ground. Colonel Packard saw this and shouted, Cole, quickly follow. He can only encourage the soldiers to stand up by themselves, otherwise if he turns around to rescue, neither of them will be able to walk. However, before the soldier could get up, The giant snake behind him had already caught up, and the giant snake opened its mouth and swallowed the soldier's upper body. The sharp teeth of the giant snake instantly penetrated the soldier's body, and the soldier died before he could scream. Colonel Packard saw this, clenched his fists, turned and ran. If he doesn't run, he has to get in. The group kept running away, but fortunately, after crossing the mountain, the giant snake did not continue to pursue. Colonel Packard and the soldiers all collapsed to the ground with exhaustion. Sir, Griffin Lynn, Galetta and the others. 557 inches. The black soldier beside him looked desperate. Will. At the moment the black soldier had a breakdown. Refresh me, Rails. They will not sacrifice in vain. As long as we can go out, I must bring a large army to avenge them. Colonel Packard said through gritted teeth. Yes, we must take revenge. The 4 remaining soldiers on the side couldn't help clenching their fists as they shared the enemy. However, at this moment, a high-pitched bird chirping came from the sky. Ah, help me. I saw the bird that suddenly swooped down and had been huge like a vulture, and when a few people were not paying attention, they grabbed one of the soldiers in an instant. Bang 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 bang. After Colonel Packard and the other soldiers reacted, they directly took up their guns and shot at the sky. However, the speed of the giant vulture is too fast, but it disappears in the blink of an eye, and the firearms are no threat to it at all. Chapter 158 King Kong vs. Skeleton Monitor Lizard. Damn it! Colonel Packard was furious, and he did not expect to lose several soldiers in a short period of time, which made his hatred for King Kong even stronger. From now on, everyone must be vigilant about everything around you, and you must not relax. Understand? 35. Colonel Packard looked at the 3 people under him and said with a serious look. Yes. The 3 soldiers under him also knew very well that if they were not careful, they might be the ones who died. It didn't take long for the rest, and the 4 of them hit the road again. This time, the 4 of them were very vigilant, and they had to observe for a long time no matter what happened. Yet death always comes so suddenly. S.H.I.E.L.D. The white soldier who suddenly walked in the middle had an unnatural expression. He felt as if his leg had been bitten by something, and it was a little itchy now. What's wrong, Saraf? The black soldier behind him asked suspiciously. His words also got Colonel Packard's idea over. I think it's fine, but suddenly my thighs are itchy. There should be some bugs in it. Let me see. 99. The white soldier lifted his trouser legs in disapproval, and saw that his entire leg had turned black and purple. The white soldier immediately panicked and sat down on the ground. What's the matter with you, Saraf? When the black soldier behind him saw him suddenly sitting on the ground, he ran over in a hurry. Colonel Packard and another soldier also gathered around. The white soldier gave a wry smile. Colonel Packard, I may not be able to. 35. He knew that he had been poisoned. After all, the whole leg had turned black and purple, and his leg at the moment had lost consciousness. It won't be long before you think it will be poisoned to death. Damn tilde. When Colonel Packard saw his legs, which had become black and purple, he knew that the soldier was helpless. Don't say they don't have any medical means. Even if there is, it is too late now. Do you have anything else to say, Saraf? Colonel Packard asked with a guilty face. I want the colonel to help me and my mother with a sentence. Just say I love her. 33 said this sentence with difficulty, and the next moment Saraf died of poisoning. Colonel Packard was saddened to see this, but there was nothing he could do. There were still 3 people left, and after simply burying Saraf, the 3 continued to move forward in silence. The depressing atmosphere made several people go crazy. Fortunately, the 3 of them controlled their emotions. There was no danger for the next section of the road, which also made Colonel Packard relieved. When it was almost noon, they finally came to the north of the island. This was the gathering place that was negotiated with the archaeological team, and it was also their last evacuation point. Colonel Packard didn't know how many people were left in the archaeological team in this dangerous environment, but he would evacuate in no time if they didn't come. Entering the woods to the north, it was silent here. It was obviously noon, but no one felt a chill. Chapman is a member of the soldier team, because he deviates from the direction, so he fell here. The 3 of Colonel Packard walked while Raw shouted, but got no response. After walking for a long time, the 3 suddenly found blood on the ground and Slivko's tag. After a few people followed the blood trail to an uncle, they saw a monster with a huge beak eating on the ground. Colonel Packard saw that although the corpse on the ground was bloody, he could still recognize it. It was Chapman. Fire! An angry Colonel Packard roared, and the 3 opened fire together. Da. Under the suppression of firepower, the skeleton monitor lizard was directly beaten into a hornet's nest. Seeing this, Colonel Packard and the 3 were relieved. However, at this moment, the surrounding ground suddenly shook. Several larger skeleton monitor lizards drilled out from the ground and surrounded the 3 of them. Colonel Packard saw a look of despair on his face. The other side. Wonderful. It's really amazing. Levi sat on a boulder on the top of a mountain, watching with interest the escape route of Colonel Packard and his group. That's right. The giant snakes and poisons that were chasing down the soldier squad just now were all under his control. Since the soldier team cannot be allowed to spread the news of Skull Island, naturally they cannot be allowed to leave. So he designed it all. Let's go back and see Lorna and the others first. 35. Levi stood up and stretched, ready to bring Lorna and the others over to see King Kong. However, at this moment, a roar came from a distance. Li Zhao, is it King Kong? He is fighting? Levi's looked curiously in the direction of the sound, but unfortunately it was too far away to see even through perspective. Let's go and have a look first. After making up his mind, he moved in a space and disappeared in place. At the same time, in a valley, King Kong is fighting several skeleton monitor lizards not far from the camp of the natives. King Kong was very powerful, but he was outnumbered and was soon injured. And the skeleton monitor lizard did not discuss any benefits, and 2 skeleton monitor lizards were directly killed by King Kong. Even so, the remaining skeleton monitor lizards rushed forward without fear of death. For a time King Kong's situation is not optimistic. Chapter 159 The dragon transforms, shocking everyone. Not far from the battle between King Kong and the skeleton monitor lizard, the 5 members of the archaeological team are hiding here to peek at the battle of several behemoths. As for why there are still 5 people left, because a middle-aged professor in the archaeological team was dismembered by a special bird not long ago. What should we do? Female reporter Weaver asked with a frown. Those 2 monsters are blocking the front, completely unable to pass. Slivko, who was wearing a red hood, looked at the 2 giant beasts in front of him, and his hand holding the gun could not help shaking. Slivko, were you not so timid before? Seeing his nervous look, Shan couldn't help teasing. I've always been that way, and I'm not timid, Slivko retorted. Okay, stop talking. Don't bring those monsters over. James stopped the noise of several people. The crowd did not speak when they saw this. Hoo-ho Tilda. At the moment, King Kong roared in the face of many skeleton monitor lizards, but everyone could see that it was exhausted. The scars all over his body made him bleed, and even the lake under his feet was dyed red. This tragic battle made several members of the archaeological team clench their fists and cheer for Jin 557 gang. However, at this moment, the ground suddenly shook. Several members of the archaeological team were almost unsteady. Immediately after they were shocked, several skeleton monitor lizards emerged from the ground, and one of the skeleton monitor lizards was twice the file size of the other skeleton monitor lizards. It is bigger than King Kong in size. Oh God, the skeleton monitor lizard that killed Kong's parents. Mark Hank, who had some knowledge of the skeleton monitor lizards recorded by the indigenous people here, couldn't help but let Raw be shocked. He had never seen such a skeleton monitor lizard. He could be sure it was definitely the skeleton monitor lizards that killed Kong's parents in the first place. This is bad. If Kong is killed, the natives will be finished. The female reporter Weaver's face changed greatly. Yes, if King Kong is killed, there will be no creatures on the ground that can stop these skeleton monitor lizards, and all creatures on the island will be wiped out. Mark Hank looked desperate. Can't we take advantage of the chaos to escape? James asked with a frown. Mark Hank shook his head. The north side was originally the old lair of the skeleton monitor lizard, and now without King Kong's deterrence, the skeleton monitor lizard will definitely come out to prey on it, and if you want to evacuate from there, it's like sheep entering jaws of death. Hearing this, everyone panicked. Then what should we do? Shan asked anxiously. However, no one could answer her that question. Everyone fell silent. Look, what is that? With a worried face, Shan suddenly saw a black spot appear in the sky. Everyone heard the words and followed her gaze. What is it? A bird? A big bird? 35. Isn't it normal to have big birds on this island? 55. No, I don't think it's that simple. Everyone stared at the black spot in the sky, and soon the black spot gradually enlarged, and finally became obscuring the sky. At this moment, the archaeologists were all dumbfounded. I saw a fiery red western dragon actually appeared in the sky. The dragon's body was very huge, and its height was at least close to 100 meters. The wings are spread out more than 300 meters. The King Kong and the Xe Blizzard below are like children in front of it. Omega. There are actually dragons on this island. It's a giant dragon. It's really shocking. No one will believe it if you say it. I want to record all of this. There are still giant dragons in this world. This news will surely shock the world. 5. Then what is the sudden appearance of the dragon helping over there? Time goes back to a few minutes ago. Levi's was a little annoyed when he saw that King Kong was besieged by a group of skeleton monitor lizards and was seriously injured. Just as he was preparing to help, he suddenly remembered that he had never used the super ability of dragon incarnation. Since they are all fighting beasts, let him be a little more shocking. Do it when you think of it. After using the super ability of dragon incarnation, I saw that his whole body began to become dragon. Dragon scales grew on his arms, and dragon horns grew on the top of his head. Then his whole body began to swell. In just a moment of effort, he transformed into a red dragon with a height of nearly 200 meters. The red scales gleamed in the sun and looked noble and mysterious. Levi's, who turned into a dragon for the first time, felt a little strange, and everything around him became very small. His power has also become very powerful, as if he can easily shatter a mountain with a single blow. This is not an illusion. But he really has this kind of power. Even after transforming into a giant dragon, there seemed to be a kind of kingly aura in his heart that made him unable to help but roar up to the sky. Immediately afterwards, his wings flew into the sky instantly, and then he flew towards the place where King Kong and the skeleton monitor lizard fought. This is what the archaeological team saw. Under the shocked gazes of the archaeological team, the red dragon descended from the sky. Boom! The ground trembled, and it was accompanied by the screams of two skeleton monitor lizards. Because when the giant dragon landed, it directly stepped on two skeleton monitor lizards more than 20 meters long. The two skeleton monitor lizards did not have any resistance, and were directly trampled into mud. Chapter 160 Killing the skeleton monitor lizard easily. This scene directly stunned the archaeological team, but they soon became happy because this giant dragon trampled the skeleton monitor lizard to death. It was definitely not here to help the skeleton monitor lizard, and with the arrival of Levi's, the battle between the skeleton monitor lizard and King Kong stopped. Both sides looked up at the dragon in front of them very vigilantly. The coercion of the giant dragon even made the skeleton monitor lizard and King Kong unable to hold back their trembling. King Kong, don't you know me? A sudden voice appeared in King Kong's mind. This voice was definitely not unfamiliar to him. After all, it was the first human friend he made yesterday. He will never forget the smell of grilled octopus legs yesterday, and even when he was catching fish this morning, it was a little tasteless. However, King Kong looked left and right, but did not find the human being, which made him very puzzled. King Kong, where are you looking? I'm right in front of you. A helpless voice appeared in King Kong's mind again. This time King Kong finally reacted, staring at the giant dragon in front of him with wide eyes. Then he roared softly. Are you the friend I met yesterday? You're not human but just like me. King Kong, who lacks knowledge, doesn't know how to explain it. In short, he thinks that Levi's is not a human, but a monster like him, which makes it feel like he has found his own kind. I'll explain this later. Come here first and let me kill these ugly guys. Levi's flashed his dragon wings and pulled King Kong power side. Seeing this, the skeleton monitor lizard also understood that the monster in front of him was about to launch an attack, and the skeleton monitor lizards were very vigilant. Levi smiled disdainfully at this, and saw that a large amount of energy suddenly gathered in his mouth, and then the energy was transformed into a red beam of light and sprayed out. Boom! Along with the explosion, the 500-meter radius was covered by the explosion, and the dazzling light was like an upside-down bowl. At this moment, the entire island trembled as if an earthquake had occurred. Several members of the archaeological team not far away were hiding on the shore, but they did not expect that the explosion would affect such a large area. Several water waves hit the archaeological team and all of them were washed away immediately. After everything was settled, I saw that there were still some big mountains in the place just now, leaving only a circular deep pit with a diameter of about 500 meters. The surrounding water all converged towards the deep pit. And where is the skeleton monitor lizard inside? It has long since been wiped out in the explosion. Just now, a single dragon breath wiped out all the skeleton monitor lizards, and Levi's was quite satisfied with this power. Transformed into a giant dragon, he is simply a humanoid missile, and every dragon breath can cause huge amounts of damage. At the same time, behind Levi's, King Kong was prostrate directly on the ground, a look of complete surrender. King Kong, what's wrong with you? Levi's turned to look at it strangely. However, King Kong did not speak, just knelt on the ground and kowtowed. He looked at it and finally understood, King Kong should mean surrender. Seeing this, he nodded with satisfaction. In fact, when he turned into a giant dragon just now, he also had the idea of completely surrendering King Kong. After all, a giant beast like King Kong who follows the jungle law should surrender to the strong. Thinking of this, Levi's pulled King Kong up. After getting King Kong, he lifted the dragon to transform. Then he looked at the river not far away. In fact, he had already discovered several members of the archaeological team, but he just ignored it. A few people can't let outsiders know about Skull Island, so these people can't stay. Levi's used telepathy to check it out, and found that the aftermath of the explosion just happened to affect a few people. King Kong, please rest for a while, I'll go see those people. After he finished speaking, he waved his hand and the injury on King Kong's body recovered instantly. Seeking flowers. Then he came to the river, and after looking around, he finally found a few members of the archaeological team. But what surprised him was that all the members of the archaeological team lost their lives because of the explosion, and only one person was lucky enough to escape, and this weak craw sucked. This person is Shan, the only woman from the Dragon Kingdom. It seems she is lucky. Levi's is not a murderer, and this woman is from the Dragon Kingdom. Hey, wake up. After giving her some treatment, Levi's patted her face. Raw called 0. After a while, the woman finally slowly opened her eyes. Where is this place? 99. Shan, who had just woken up, was still a little confused, but after seeing Levi's, she couldn't take her eyes away. Is this heaven? Shan muttered to herself. This is no heaven. 59. Levi's was a little speechless, and then he was ready to revise her memory and send her to the city. By the way, the secrets of Skull Island must not be exposed, so he can only do so. However, at this moment, Shan looked puzzled. Who am I? Why am I here? 35. Huh? You don't know who you are? 9. Levi's was a little surprised. He hadn't modified this woman's memory, so why did he start acting stupid? I don't know, can't remember. Shan's dazed look doesn't seem like she's pretending to be stupid at all. Levi's frowned. Could it be that this woman just hit her head and lost her memory? How could it be such a coincidence? Thinking of this, he used telepathy to check it, but he didn't expect that he really lost his memory. It is estimated that when he was swept away by the water wave just now, he hit his head. This is good, no need to modify the memory. Chapter 161 Being treated as a husband by Shan, X-Gene Awakening Potion. That is, when Levi's was thinking, Shan suddenly hugged him. Hey, what are you doing? Levi's looked at Shan, who was hugging him, in surprise. I'm so afraid, I've lost my previous memories, but fortunately, with you here, I can feel that you are very kind, you must be my husband. Shan's eyes are sometimes dazed and sometimes firm, but according to her own feelings, she is sure that the man in front of her must have something to do with her. Levi's was a little speechless, all because he had the super ability of affinity, which made it easy for others to have an affinity for him. And Shan, who has lost her memory, is precisely because of the affinity that Levi's has a close relationship with her. Looking at Shan, who was a little wet and seduced by 5-6 zeros in front of her, for some reason the thought of sending her back just now disappeared, and a flame in her heart rose for some unknown reason. I can't stand it anymore. Levi's picked up Shan and disappeared in a flash. When they reappeared, they were already in an empty room in a hotel. It was not until afternoon that Levi's returned to his villa in Hawaii. Vice, why are you coming back now? In the villa, Lorna and Skye looked at him who had just returned with great dissatisfaction. Who made you unable to get up in the morning, so I had to go to Skull Island by myself. Levi's shrugged helplessly and explained. Can't get up ... not because of you. Several women gave him a roll of eyes. Then, under the questioning of several women, Levi's recounted what happened when he saw the King Kong Skull Monitor Lizard battle. Definitely, he didn't say anything about taking Shan away later. After he left, the Cuckoo sisters have been instructed to take care of him, so there is no need to worry at all. When they learned that he would actually turn into a dragon, everyone was a little curious. But Levi's had no choice but to transform into a dragon and take them to swim under the night sky. In the blink of an eye, half a year has passed since my last vacation to Hawaii. The research on the X-gene was as expected by Levi's. Just today, Ma finally told him the good news on the mental network. When he got the news, he came to the underground laboratory in an instant. Master, you are here. Marv and Phoebe were already waiting here. Not just them but Mystique is here too. Where's Magneto? He didn't come? Levi's asked suspiciously, looking at Mystique. It stands to reason that if the experiment is successful, Magneto will definitely come here to see it. Eric recently discovered some information about ancient mutants, so he's not in New York, but I've informed him, and I'll come here to see when I'm done. Mystique explained. Ancient mutant information. Levi's caught the crux of Mystique's words. That's right, there is news about the ancient mutants. I wonder if Vice, have you heard of the apocalypse? 35 Mystique asked. Apocalypse? Definitely have heard of it. Levi's nodded in surprise. Did Magneto find the location of the apocalypse? Mystique went on to explain. In legend, Apocalypse was the first mutant in ancient times. He was very powerful, but disappeared inexplicably. Just a few days ago, someone in Brotherhood discovered the information of Apocalypse, so Magneto rushed over. 99. So that's the case, it seems that I have to go too. 35. Levi stroked his chin. Apocalypse's strength is still very strong, and his ability is similar to himself, and he also has a variety of super abilities. Magneto certainly couldn't beat him. Although the strength of Apocalypse did not reach the 5th level mutant, it was also much stronger than the 4th level mutant like Magneto. The original Apocalypse developed Magneto's ability, which instantly increased Magneto's strength and was able to control the Earth's magnetic field. It can be seen that the means of Apocalypse are really good. But for Levi's, it's still too far. I haven't thought about it that much for the time being, so let's first understand the situation of the X-gene medicine. A group of people came to the laboratory. Mr. Vice, you are here. In the laboratory, doctors greeted him enthusiastically after seeing him coming. I heard that the experiment was successful, so I came to check it out. 33 Levi's laughed. Hearing this question, Dr. Ethan was a little excited. Yes, Mr. Vice, our experiment has been successful, you come with me, doctors said and led the way. Levi's had no choice but to follow. A group of people came to another laboratory. Mr. Vice, welcome to the laboratory. In the laboratory, a guy whose head was obviously out of proportion to his body made a move with an roar. Dr. Stern? Levi's looked at this guy with a big head that looked like an alien with some surprise. If it wasn't for his good eyesight, he wouldn't have recognized it. If this guy is put outside, he will definitely be regarded as an alien. Ha ha ha. Mr. Vice, I didn't expect you to recognize me. Dr. Stern laughed. 4.1 I remember Mystique. Didn't you catch a lot of war criminals for experiments? Why bother to experiment with yourself? Levi's was a little puzzled. Hearing his question, Dr. Stern suddenly became furious. Because I wanted to test my theory, I experimented myself, but it turned out that I was successful. I have always wanted to prove that the Hulk is also a mutant, but in previous research, I always thought that the Hulk was born because of gamma rays. Speaking of this Dr. Stern, he couldn't stop at all, and fanatically explained his amazing discovery to everyone. Chapter 162 The Ancient Mutant Apocalypse. After listening to Dr. Stern's explanation, Levi's only felt that his head was getting bigger. Anyone who listens to such a complicated explanation is a big head, and now Dr. Stern, who is like the big-headed son, is the best proof. Simply put, Dr. Stern, you used your latest formula on yourself, and then awakened the X gene to become a mutant, and the side effect was a bigger head? Yes, the summary is very accurate. Dr. Stern nodded excitedly. As you can see, the X gene in my body finally stabilized, and then my head became bigger, but this does not affect my wisdom, because my super ability is super wisdom. Super wisdom? 99. Levi's immediately became interested. Yes, super wisdom can make my thinking ability stronger, and research is more handy. Dr. Stern explained. I see. Levi's nodded. So Dr. Stern's awakened 22 super ability made his research ability stronger. However, a scientist with superior intelligence is not so easy to control. If this guy creates something dangerous, it will be a little troublesome. Thinking about it, Levi's asked Maffy and Phoebe to keep an eye on Dr. Stern in the Mind Network. Dr. Stern continued, actually, I still have a conclusion now that the awakening after eroding the X gene through foreign genes is very likely to make the X gene express a specific super ability. But such theoretical data is too little. Hatred is one, I can only be half, and more data is needed. Awakening at the supernatural level is against the theory of evolution. A few ordinary people are not mutants or aliens, but inexplicably obtain the power of Superman. This sounds a bit difficult to understand. In short, another gene has eroded the X gene of human beings, thus gaining power beyond ordinary people. Just like Spider-Man is an example of this. Spider-Man's own X gene was eroded by the spider's gene, and finally obtained the ability similar to the spider. That is to say, apart from magic, any ability beyond ordinary people is the awakening of the X gene. Just like Sandman in Spider-Man. Levi speculates that Iron Man's far superior intelligence is likely to have awakened the X gene. It's just that the situation is relatively recessive, so the X gene has not been detected. Definitely. He doesn't care about those things right now. Since you have succeeded, Dr. Stern, what about the success rate of awakening? Hearing this question, Dr. Stern couldn't help frowning. So far, the success rate of ordinary people's awakening is 70%. Even if they are not awakened successfully, it will not have much impact on their bodies. But 99. Just what? 99. It's just that 40% of those 70% will cause ability to get out of control, explained Dr. Stern. Ability out of control? This is not good news. Levi's frowned. In other words, the current success rate is only 1/3. The 1/3 awakening success rate looks pretty good, and even failure doesn't make much of a difference. But the key point is that 1/3 of the awakened successful people will lose control of ability, and this unstable factor is not what he wants. Can't it reduce the chance of ability getting out of control? Levi's asked, frowning. Definitely. Dr. Stern nodded. The research data of the Kree are very useful to us, and the side effects of the Inhumans studied by the Kree are relatively small. The reason is that the Kree uses the genes of mutant ancestors. According to our research, the ancestors of mutants have always been combined with ordinary people, and now their genes have changed a lot, and these changes have led to a decline in the success rate of awakening. So that's the case, that means you just need to get the ancient mutants genes, right? Levi's asked, rubbing his chin. Dr. Stern nodded and said, that's right. If we can get the genes of the mutants, we can reduce the probability of ability out of control by 1%, or even lower. And the success rate of awakening can also be increased to 100%. 90%. Hearing this answer, the corners of Leviston's mouth twitched into a smile. I just got the news of Apocalypse. I didn't expect that the research on the 560 side would require the genes of ancient mutants. This is a coincidence. There is no problem with the ancient mutants genes, they will be obtained soon. You should be prepared first. Mr. Vice, don't worry, as long as there are ancient mutant genes, we will make the X gene awakening potion as soon as possible and must produce it. 39. Dr. Stern assured with hot A's. Okay, that's what I've been waiting for. Levi's nodded and turned to leave the lab. Outside the laboratory, Mystique took the initiative to tell the information of Apocalypse before he could ask. Eric has gone to Egypt on his behalf. Levi's nodded. According to the original book, the place where the Apocalypse slept was indeed in the pyramids somewhere in Egypt, which is not false. After learning of Magneto's location, Levi's wasted no time and took Mystique to the Egyptian desert together. Chapter 163 Awakened Apocalypse, Mighty Psychokinesis. Levi's who came to the desert saw Magneto and others from a distance. Vice, here you are." Magneto was not surprised to see him coming. "Well, how is the situation here now?" Levi's asked directly without any politeness. "According to our investigation, the pyramids where Apocalypse was buried are under this desert, and we are working hard to dig." Magneto pointed to the deep pit beside him. "I saw that the spire of the pyramids had been exposed, but because it was a desert, it was not easy to dig. Whenever the wind blows, the sand that has been dug up will be filled back, which makes them a headache." Seeing this, Levi's frowned. "Let everyone come out, I'll take care of the sand." Magneto heard the words without saying a word, and directly asked the Brotherhood members next to the pyramids to get up. "Let everyone stand back." Levi's waved to Magneto. "We back off." Magneto didn't talk nonsense, and led the crowd back 100 meters. Immediately afterward, what surprised everyone was that the surrounding wind direction had changed, and the wind was getting stronger and stronger. But it turned into a gust of wind roar whistling in a moment. The sand blown by the strong wind made everyone unable to open their eyes. "Wait until the wind stops." Everyone opened their eyes and looked in disbelief. "I saw the flat desert just now." At the moment, pyramids were revealed. The original sand had long been blown away by the wind to form a dune. "Sharp." Magneto sighed and walked over. "There's the entrance to the pyramids, right? If Apocalypse is really inside, what are we going to do? Bring him in or kill him?" 99. Mystique was a little puzzled. "Definitely kill him. Don't you think that Apocalypse is a good person? Besides, we only need Apocalypse's genes." 35. Apocalypse is not a good person, and can even be said to be the natural enemy of all mutants, because Apocalypse can carry out soul capture. Whenever his lifespan runs out, another mutant will be taken away. It also gave him the super ability of another mutant. In the past thousands of years, Apocalypse does not know how many mutants he has captured, which makes him very powerful and has the ability of immortality. Once the Apocalypse comes out, there will definitely be another chaos, so he must not be allowed to get out of here alive. Under Mystique's explanation, Magneto also understood that the X-Gene Research Institute needs ancient mutant genes, and now there are ancient mutants here. With Magneto's character, he definitely doesn't care about sacrificing this unknown ancient mutant. The three entered the pyramids, while the rest of the Brotherhood waited outside. There are plenty of caves in the pyramids, but that doesn't stop the trio's progress. Soon they came to the main tomb. I saw that in the center of the tomb, there was a stone bed, and on the stone bed lay a man with dark skin and armor. Levi's eyes narrowed slightly. This person should be the Apocalypse. After the last time he failed to turn his soul, he had been in a deep sleep. Now that so many years have passed, he slowly opened his eyes and sat up. "Yes, sit up." Levi's, Magneto, and Mystique did not expect that they would wake up just after entering the Apocalypse. "How is this possible? After so many years, you have woken up?" Mystique's mouth widened with disbelief. Magneto took a deep breath. "Nothing is impossible. This is the world's first mutant. No matter how hard it is to accept, what appears in front of them is the truth." Levi's was not too surprised. After all, he had long known that Apocalypse was not dead. "You woke me up." At this time, Tanchi finally came back to his senses, but the language he spoke was somewhat incomprehensible to the three of them. "Welcome to the return of your god. This time I will lead you back to the glory that belongs to the mutants." Apocalypse stood up and raised his hands in a posture of a magic stick. What is somewhat surprising is that what Apocalypse speaks now is standard English. Definitely, prophecy has never been a problem for Apocalypse. He has the ability similar to telepathy and can quickly acquire some knowledge of the world. The first time Magneto saw Apocalypse, he knew that this ancient mutant had very big ambitions, and this guy was definitely not a kind person. Now that the mutants are in good shape, he is definitely not willing to give this god a subordinate. "Sorry Apocalypse, your era has passed, and now is ours," Magneto said indifferently, and then flew several steel balls from his body and shot them out. There is no steel in this desert, so he brought some steel balls to use as a means of attack. Bang bang. The steel ball was destroyed by an inexplicable force before it. King Lee's approached the Apocalypse, and now Magneto has no choice. "It seems that you still don't know how strong your king is. I will make you surrender, and I will make you into the 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse." Ha ha ha. Apocalypse laughed. It was at this moment that Levi suddenly felt that his body was restrained. Yes, psychokinesis both. He also has psychokinesis. He can feel it naturally. Meanwhile, Magneto and Mystique are both bound by psychokinesis. The two struggled hard, but there was nothing they could do. Mystique was originally relatively weak in combat. After all, it was only a 3rd-level mutant, and there is no steel around Magneto, and his combat power is instantly crippled. Chapter 164. The Battle with Apocalypse. Vice. With nothing to do, Magneto could only stare at him. Levi smiled faintly at this, and then the more powerful psychokinesis blasted directly at Apocalypse. Boom. Apocalypse was caught off guard and was blasted out directly, smashing the pyramids and falling outside. Levi's grabs Magneto and Mystique, and the three leave the pyramids instantly. "Apocalypse, it's not your era anymore, and now the whole world will usher in the era of mutants, and all we need is your genes, so we can only sacrifice you." the ancestor of mutants. 5. Levi's looked at the weather on the ground with a flat face. It's impossible. No one can be stronger than me. Apocalypse, who just got up, looked at Levi's in disbelief. He had no idea that he would actually lose in Psychokinesis. You are the strongest mutant in this era, but you will never be my opponent, because I am the strongest mutant. 560. After finishing speaking, Tan-Chi waved his hands, and the yellow sand around him instantly turned into a giant of yellow sand more than 3 meters high and stood up. Oh? Is it the ability to control sand? Levi's was a little surprised that this ability to control sand was not present in the original movie, but he didn't care too much. After all, Apocalypse might have more super abilities than him, and it's not surprising that he has the ability to control sand. Without thinking too much, he made a single move with one hand and several 3-meter-high ice giants rose from the ground, and then charged towards the yellow sand giant. As soon as the two sides came into contact, the yellow sand giant was smashed by the ice giant with a punch. On the contrary, the yellow sand giant's fist hit the ice giant just to make it retreat slightly. But in a moment, the giants of yellow sand were all scattered. Apocalypse frowned upon seeing this. You actually have 2 abilities? Generally speaking, mutants only have 1 super ability, and rarely have 2 super ability. And even if there are 2 kinds of super abilities, they are somewhat related to each other. For example, Psychokinesis has no connection with the ability to manipulate ice, and generally speaking, it is impossible for one person to control it at the same time. Don't you also have 2 abilities? Levi's wouldn't explain anything. Tan-Chi frowned, and then raised his hand slightly. The next moment, I saw that the sand on the ground turned into a sand giant again, and this was not over. I saw that the sand giant turned into the rock giant slowly. Apocalypse has the ability to change the form of molecules, and just now he used the ability of molecules to turn the sand giant into a rock giant. Manipulators? I'll do that too. Levi smiled lightly, then snapped his fingers. The next moment I saw his ice giant turned into a diamond giant. Diamond is much harder than rock. As soon as the 2 giants fought, the rock giant was instantly scattered. Apocalypse has any other means to use it, otherwise you will have no chance. Levi smiled lightly. Magneto and Mystique and Brotherhood behind them were all excited when they saw this. Is this person the ancestor of the legendary mutant? It doesn't look like much. It doesn't look very good. It was completely suppressed by the leader. If you want me to see the so-called Apocalypse, it's nothing more than that. You police officers are too careless. This person is an ancient mutant after all. The White Queen, the Red Devil and others were discussing, and these words were naturally heard by Apocalypse, and he was furious in his heart, and then he suddenly disappeared in place, and then appeared behind Levi's. It's an instant move. Aware of the Apocalypse appearing behind him, Levi's folded his arms and made no response. Apocalypse saw this and thought that he didn't respond, and then punched him. Powerful wind pressure erupted with this punch, and the next moment the punch hit Levi's back. Boom! With a bang. The next moment Apocalypse flew out. This scene surprised everyone. Only the White Queen knows very well that Levi's has the ability to bounce back physical attacks, and it can be said that any physical attacks are useless to him. As the first mutant in ancient times, is Apocalypse your only strength? Levi's turned around slowly and looked at the somewhat embarrassed Apocalypse Road. This remark made Tan-Chi very angry, but a thought made him a little surprised. Are you an Omega level mutant? The so-called Omega level is the 5th level mutant, and this level of mutants has not appeared even in ancient times. The only modern-day 5th level mutant, the Phoenix, was called a 5th level mutant because of the power of the Phoenix. To be honest, Phoenix is not a mutant at all, and only Levi's is the real 5th level mutant. That's right. So Apocalypse, are you ready? Levi's said with a faint smile. Apocalypse saw him admit that he was shocked at the same time, and also understood why he was not his opponent. Apocalypse has always wanted to make himself a 5th level mutant by constantly acquiring super ability. But he failed. Even if there are more ability, it is still only a 4th level mutant. But now he has seen the 5th level mutant with his own eyes, which made him sigh for no reason in his heart. Is it really the age of young people? But as the former mutant king, he will never surrender. Come on, kill me, and from now on you are the new king of mutants. After speaking, Apocalypse stood up again, and all abilities such as fire and frost lightning were used. Chapter 165 Get the Apocalypse. The X-Gene Awakening potion is completed. Levi's didn't want to continue wasting time with Apocalypse after seeing this. Powerful telepathy took control of Apocalypse in an instant. Apocalypse has no telepathy. Although his spiritual power is very strong, he has no resistance in front of Levi's. Get it done. Stretching. Then he was ready to sign in on Tan-Chi. Apocalypse has too many super abilities, and what he cares most about is the ability that can enhance the strength of other mutants. In the original book, Apocalypse easily enhanced Magneto's strength, allowing him to easily control the Earth's magnetic field, whether it is high-rise buildings or underground iron sand. It can be said that Magneto's strength is completely different from before the improvement. Ding. Is the host checking in? Double experience points / super ability. Sign into super ability. Ding. Sign in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the super ability potential catalysis. Experience value minus 100 points. Levi's who got this super ability was stunned for a moment, and then he reacted immediately. Isn't this potential catalyst exactly the super ability he wanted? It can permanently enhance the potential and strength of other mutants, but it is a bit expensive for the user. And how much it can be enhanced is hard to say. This is determined according to the potential of the individual. Some mutants have great potential, and it is not impossible to upgrade from a 3rd-level mutant to a 4th-level mutant. With the super ability he wanted in his heart, Levi's was very satisfied, and even looked at Apocalypse with a lot of kindness. However, he did not relax the control of Apocalypse to be on the safe side. He directly deleted all memories of Apocalypse, making him a person whose memories were like blank sheets of paper. Because such people are better in control. Okay, it's time for us to go back. Levi smiled at Magneto and the others. You controlled him? No problem. Magneto frowned. He still didn't dare to let his guard down on Apocalypse, the ancient mutant. Don't worry, I've deleted most of his memories, and now he's just a puppet. Levi's waved his hand and said nothing. Then I can rest assured. Magneto was relieved to see him say that. The group then set off back to New York. Levi's handed the Apocalypse to Dr. Stern and Dr. Ethan. It didn't take long, just 3 days. Dr. Stern brought him good news. How? What is the success rate of the awakening potion made with Apocalypse's genes? This is Levi's primary concern. It is conceivable that if the era of mutants is opened, then he will no longer be short of sign-in objects. How strong will he be by then? 7th-level mutant or 8th-level mutant? In short, he will become extraordinarily powerful, and even surpassing the power of the Phoenix is only a matter of time. Tilde Mr. Vice, you can rest assured. The effect of the awakening potion produced by using Apocalypse's genes has exceeded expectations. The success rate has reached 99%. Why not 100%? Because we have no experimental materials. 99. Dr. Stern explained excitedly. After obtaining Apocalypse's genes, Dr. Stern and others began to conduct live experiments day and night. More than 80 war criminals eventually successfully awakened super ability. And there is no phenomenon of ability getting out of control. It can be said that the X-gene awakening potion produced by Apocalypse gene is almost perfect. Levi's was also a little excited when he heard the words. It seems that the era of mutants is coming soon. Vice, since the X-gene awakening potion has been completed, can we act now? Magneto's eyes have also become hot, and let the world start the era of mutants, which has always been his dream. Seeking flowers, and this dream is coming, and no one is more excited than him. It is his greatest wish to be able to see the arrival of the era of mutants before he dies. However, Levi's shook his head. No, now is not the time to start. Let them increase the production of X-memory awakening potion. All we have to do now is to wait patiently. When Magneto heard his words, his anxious heart also calmed down. After waiting for so many years, I am not in a hurry. For the next time, both the X-Men and the Mutant Brotherhood went quiet. But a keen person can detect the undercurrent surging under the calm water's surface, and it may even set off a monstrous wave at any time. Point 0. And Nick Fury was the one who sensed something was wrong. On the Skye carrier. You are in the chief's office. Nick Fury stared closely at Levi's. You mutants seem to have quieted down lately. Isn't that great? Levi's shrugged and laughed. The times are changing. The world is changing at any time. I don't care if you mutants are secretly doing some little tricks. But what's going on? Nick Fury said and threw some papers in front of him. I saw on the document that Kamar-Taj Levi's unleashed flames to burn dark bats, and there were records of killing Apocalypse in Egypt's pyramids. Oh, it seems that you are very concerned about mutants. Levi smiled disdainfully, knowing what Nick Fury's purpose was, apparently to get some news from him. But he was too lazy to explain so much. In his opinion, Nick Fury should be busy, so he has time to care about their mutants. This question is very simple. You have nothing to do when you are idle, right? Well, I'll find you something to do. Mountain. Chapter 166 S.H.I.E.L.D. or Snake Shield. I have a message to tell you. Would you like to hear it? Levi smiled playfully at Nick Fury. What is it? 35. Nick Fury asked with a frown. It's definitely about S.H.I.E.L.D. Last time our X-Men went on a mission, Professor X happened to know what was in the minds of your S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. You should know the slogan of Hydra. What are you trying to say is that the agent is a Hydra? Nick Fury's face became serious, and he felt that this matter was not simple. That's right. Levi's nodded. A look that you're not too stupid. That's it. Nick Fury was very calm when he heard 563. Levi's was a little surprised. He didn't react when he learned that S.H.I.E.L.D. had a Hydra. Maybe it wasn't a fake Nick Fury, and even he suspected that it was Mystique pretending to be. I said, are you having trouble with your ears? S.H.I.E.L.D. are the moles of Hydra. There is no need to make a fuss. Although the Hydra was destroyed during World War II, the essence of the Hydra is an idea of human power, so this idea exists in any era, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is based on the Hydra. And the establishment, Some people will have this kind of thinking is definitely a matter of course. Nick Fury explained flatly. When Levi's heard it, he felt a sense of irony and laughter. It seems that the director of Luden has not realized the seriousness of the matter. So do you really understand what I mean? 99. What's the meaning? Nick Fury was a little puzzled by what he said, ignoring that nothing could shake him in the wind and waves he's been through. After all, it has also experienced several things that destroyed the world. Just like the time of Mephitos and the time of Phoenix, which of these two times is not a crisis that will destroy the world? Nick Fury thinks that nothing can affect his state of mind. Seeing this, Levi's couldn't help laughing. What I want to say is that the agent found a lot of Hydra lists in his mind. In other words, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by Hydra. 99. What? Nick Fury, who was originally very calm and thought that nothing could move him, was shocked and almost jumped up after hearing this. Are you sure this news is true? What's the name of that agent? Compared to Nick Fury, who was calm just now, at the moment he was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. He may be able to accept that S.H.I.E.L.D. has several Hydra spies, but he will never believe that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by Hydra. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s defense is not invulnerable, but it is strong enough. Any spy who wants to sneak in can't be so easy. You heard right. S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by Hydra, and I don't know the specifics. Levi spread his hands and said, although the agent he said was false, he was not afraid that the lie would be exposed. After all, today's S.H.I.E.L.D. has indeed been infiltrated by Hydra, and even if an agent is randomly caught, it may be a spy of Hydra. Where's the agent? Do you know who he is? Nick Fury is more concerned about this issue now. As long as he finds this agent, he can investigate the Hydra behind the office. That agent, I don't know his name, but I should know him. Levi's touched his chin. Nick Fury saw this and dropped out of the agents who participated in the mission last time to solve the Phoenix. Vice, look at that person. Ah. These photos are from a few years ago. I think you'd better call someone over to take a look. How did Levi's know that the agent was a real Hydra? If there is no Hydra in this group of agents, it will be a pain in the ass, and it is impossible to say that he has to stuff something into other people's brains. Okay then. Nick Fury had no choice but to agree. Soon more than a dozen agents who performed the task last time were called over. Nick Fury made a gesture, meaning to make Levi's feel like he'd found Hydra. Levi's used telepathy to check the memories of more than a dozen agents. Unexpectedly, half of the more than 10 agents are from Hydra. Nick Fury is busy now. Laughing secretly in his heart, Levi's pointed to one of the black agents and said, "It's this person." Nick Fury frowned at this. "Are you sure it's him?" "And this guy," Levi's said, pointing to another agent. "Too?" Nick Fury frowned, wondering if he should believe Levi's. A group of agents had absolutely no idea what they were doing in 4.1, but the two Hydra agents who were pointed at were a little panicked. Nick Fury had learned micro-expressions, and seeing the two of them behave like this, he immediately understood that there must be something wrong with the two of them. "Definitely, no, you can interrogate it." Levi's nodded. Nick Fury didn't ink anything when he saw this, and directly asked all the agents to be taken down for interrogation. Seeing this, he suddenly thought of a question. What if there are also Hydras among the interrogators? So what interrogation information would Nick Fury get? Will you get someone who doesn't have Hydra? Chapter 167 The Emergence of Tesseract. Things are not as Levi's imagined. Maybe Hydra also knows how to abandon the car and keep it handsome. After an interrogation, Nick Fury got the result that the two men identified by Levi's were indeed Hydra people, while the others had no problems. This result was also expected by Levi's. As for what Nick Fury will do with Hydra in the future, it's none of his business. It's not that Levi's did nothing during this time. There are many ordinary people in this world who want to become mutants. After the news of the X-Gene Awakening potion was released, many rich people secretly wanted to buy the X-Gene Awakening potion from them. And with the permission of Levi's, a lot has also been sold. Although he intends to open the era of mutants, it does not mean that he cannot make money with the X-Gene Awakening potion. While the era of mutants has not yet begun, it is also very good to make a fortune, and there are many rich people. Some terminally ill wealthy people are even willing to give up their fortunes just to survive as mutants. At the same time, some ordinary people who secretly support mutants directly distributed X-Gene Awakening medicine for free. Although most ordinary people hate mutants, there are still ordinary people who are very helpful to mutants. But once they become mutants, they are the target of government suppression. Therefore, these rich or ordinary people who have become mutants can only choose to join the X-Men or the Mutant Brotherhood, which makes the power of mutants expand rapidly for a period of time. The ugly country was originally a country dominated by capital, and with the support of these rich people, the situation of mutants is getting better and better. Perhaps it was because of this change that Nick Fury noticed something, but even if he sensed something, it didn't matter, because the beginning of the Age of Mutants was unstoppable. And Levi's used the super ability of potential catalysis that he signed from Apocalypse last time to improve the strength of Lorna and Clarice. They are all mutants with good ability potential. After the potential catalysis improvement, Their strength has risen sharply, and all of them have become 4th-level mutants. This improvement is not a big deal. However, this also consumes most of Levi's energy, so trying to improve Storm and Cyclops can only be put on hold. Taking time, he also brought Shan, who had awakened X's memory, to the Mutant Academy. Shan, who had forgotten the past, now accepts the new identity of a mutant. Definitely, there is another woman who is Levi's. It has to be said that Shan is indeed very sweet, so he directly gave Shan a nickname of Xiao. Knight, come over here, Xiao. Let me taste if it's sweet today. Looking at Shan, who had just taken a shower, Levi's couldn't help but smile. I was just about to do something that everyone likes to do, but I didn't expect the door to be knocked. Who? Levi's hugged Shan and looked at the door with some unpleasantness. He thought it was Storm and the others, but he didn't expect it to be Nick Fury. How dare this guy come to the Mutant Academy in person? Levi's was a little surprised, because he was very afraid of Professor X's telepathy, so Nick Fury didn't dare to come to the academy at all. But he didn't expect him to come in person so late. Seeing this, Levi's had to let go of Shan and then opened the door. It seems that you are in big trouble, Chief. Yes, come with me. There is no time to explain. 35. Nick Fury turned and left with a serious face. Levi's had no choice but to follow. The two came to the helicopter, and it wasn't until after the helicopter took off that Nick Fury was relieved. Do you know Tesseract? Definitely heard that Red Skull used Tesseract to make a lot of black technology during World War II. That's right. When we spent a lot of money to salvage what we thought was superhero, we also salvaged this thing, by the way, Nick Fury explained. The salvaged superhero doesn't even need to be known to be Captain America. So you guys also learned Red Skull to use Tesseract to make weapons? This is indeed the case. 563. After all, you should understand the situation of the Earth today. We have been exposed to the eyes of other advanced civilizations, so I think we need powerful weapons to defend the Earth. Nick Fury frowned. Then what? You guys are off, and there's something wrong with the Tesseract? Today's Nick Fury doesn't look for him for everything. After all, he's on the mutant side of things. That's why Nick Fury hasn't looked for him in the past 6 months. Definitely, this does not rule out the situation where Captain America is no longer needed. Now it must be that the matter cannot be solved, so he will find him for help overnight. Hearing this, Nick Fury said helplessly, everything was going very well, but just now, Phil Coulson called for help when he was checking the progress of the research. At present, only you can solve it. 5. Sure enough, as Levi's had guessed, something went wrong with the Tesseract. Chapter 168 is the crisis of destroying the world again. Fury is numb. Moments later, the helicopter stopped at a military research base. Phil Coulson at the moment has been waiting here for a long time. How is the situation now? Nick Fury asked as soon as he got off the plane. Director, the current situation is not optimistic, but the danger level cannot be determined yet. Phil Coulson replied helplessly. It seems that the situation is very bad. Fortunately, Nick Fury was prepared but did not panic. Director, I have to say that it was the most correct decision for you to bring Vice. Maybe he can solve this crisis. Phil Coulson breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Levi's. After all, this one has saved the Earth several times in the crisis of destroying the world. Haha, Phil Coulson is embarrassed for saying that. Levi's was amused when Phil Coulson said that. I think we'd better go and see what's going on first. Nick Fury interrupted the two, touting each other. The group entered the research room of the military base. Phil Coulson, tell me the specifics. It's like this. Dr. Selvig discovered not long ago that Tesseract suddenly emits energy fluctuations, so Phil Coulson briefly explained what happened. I remember that research on Tesseract had to be licensed, and I don't remember giving him research permission today. Nick Fury frowned after Phil Coulson's words. It's true that there was no permission from the director, but Dr. Selvig didn't do research either, because Tesseract started it on its own. Phil Coulson explained. Self-started? Nick Fury frowned. So what energy level has it reached now? Not sure, because the detection range has been exceeded, and the energy radiation is still increasing, and Dr. Selvig has tried to turn it off, but failed. Nick Fury was helpless when he heard this. Tesseract was completely out of control, and he didn't know what the consequences would be. Let's organize the evacuation first, the sooner the better. 99. Yes. Phil Coulson nodded and prepared to contact the military base for evacuation. However, at this time Levi smiled and shook his head. No need. Why? Nick Fury looked at him suspiciously. I can feel the energy inside is very strong, unbelievably strong. If this energy explodes, I am afraid that even escaping to the other side of the Earth will be useless. 39. Levi's explained indifferently. What? Hearing this, Nick Fury's forehead immediately left a cold sweat, which means that if the energy explodes, the entire Earth will be destroyed. Vice, are you sure? Definitely sure. Levi's nodded. There was definitely something he didn't say, and that was that the Tesseract wouldn't explode at will. The abnormality of Tesseract now should be that Loki, who fell into the abyss from Bifrost last time, contacted Tesseract and wanted to teleport. Just as a few people were talking, everyone had already come to the underground research room. It can be seen that in the huge research room, there are huge amounts of instruments, and the blue cube suspended together is the Tesseract. It doesn't look that bad. Nick Fury breathed a sigh of relief after seeing the suspended Tesseract. I think you can look up above. Levi's interrupted his delusion and pointed to the sky above the Tesseract. I saw an energy ball with a diameter of about 10 meters gathered somewhere, and the energy ball exuded blue-white light. Okay, it does look bad. Nick Fury spread his hands helplessly. At this time, Dr. Selvig came over and said, actually, don't worry too much about that energy ball. It's just a product of our experiment, and the real trouble is Tesseract originally, because it has started to get out of control. 566 Are you sure? Nick Fury frowned. Not what Levi said. Well, it's not too sure at the moment. Dr. Selvig was at a loss for words. Then didn't you try to unplug it? Nick Fury still had some flukes in mind. However, Dr. Selvig's words directly interrupted his fluke. Sir, this is not a home TV, because the Tesseract was originally a source of huge amounts of energy, with a near infinite amount of energy inside it. 35. If it is released, let alone Earth, the entire solar system will be destroyed. In fact, Tesseract is now in the stage of releasing energy. 99. Sure enough, Nick Fury's face became solemn. He couldn't find a solution after thinking about it, but he had no choice but to look at Levi's. Li Wang'o, Vice, you already know the situation. Do you have any solution? Levi's has long been thinking about whether to let Loki come out to do things, and after thinking about it, he decided to let Loki come to the grave according to the original book. Now if he wants to open the era of mutants, he still needs an opportunity. An opportunity for human beings to realize that they can only survive if they control a powerful force. And that power is the power of mutants. As long as the Chitauri army comes to the Earth, people will truly realize the power of mutants, and only mutants are the most powerful force against alien civilization. At that time, presumably no one will refuse to become a mutant. Chapter 169 Signing into Tesseract, Loki arrives. Thinking of this, Levi said unhurriedly, don't worry, let me take a look. Nick Fury was a little puzzled to see him so calm, but he was also relieved. Before coming to Tesseract, Levi's looked at the space gem curiously. At this time, the phoenix in his body seemed to move. Vice, I can feel that this power is very pure and powerful, and if it can be absorbed, it can at least restore 10% of the power we had in our heyday. Hearing Phoenix's words, Leviston's eyes lit up. Why didn't he come first? The power of the phoenix can absorb any energy, even the Infinity Stones. And the Infinity Stones are very special, and every moment of the Infinity Stones has a special power. If it can absorb all the 6 Infinity Stones, it is not impossible for Phoenix to recover its full strength. Thinking of this, Levi's was a little excited. As long as the full power of the Phoenix is restored, then the God Thanos or the God Group will destroy one by one. There are probably not many people in the entire Marvel Universe that can threaten him. 563 shook his head without thinking too much. Sign up now. Ding. Is the host checking into the space gem? Double experience or super ability? Sign into super ability. 35. Facing the space gem. He definitely signed up for the super ability. Ding. Sign in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the super ability Power of Space, with 100 experience points. It was actually the power of space. Levi's was excited. Directly controlling the power of space is much stronger than the previous space movement and space reversal. He has control over any use of space. But to say that with the power of space, he is already invincible. After possessing the power of space, his previous space movement and space reversal disappeared directly from the super ability list, and it seemed that they were classified together. It was at this time, the Tesseract suddenly appeared abnormal, and the light on the Tesseract was getting brighter and brighter, which made everyone tremble with fear. What's going on? Nick Fury asked in surprise. Director, the space around Tesseract and some anomalies seem to be about to open a small wormhole. Dr. Selvig suddenly shouted. Small wormhole? What does that mean? Nick Fury frowned. Means someone's coming out. Levi's answered his question. At this moment, Tesseract suddenly released an energy shock, and everyone was instantly swayed by this shock device. Immediately after that, the light on the Tesseract dissipated. However, before Nick Fury was happy, he saw a person on the test bench, a figure he was somewhat familiar with. The person who came was Loki, the second Prince of Asgard. You are the Prince of Asgard? The evil god Loki? Nick Fury instantly recognized who it was. After all, the last Thor and the Destroyer incident had brought Asgard into his sight for the first time. This made him have to pay attention to this matter. And now that the second Prince of Asgard has come to Earth again, even he has to be careful. Loki proudly raised his head and looked at the crowd, then raised his spear without hesitation and shot out a magic bullet. However, the magic bullet dissipated while it was still in midair. Hey, Loki, you seem to have forgotten me? Levi's folded his arms and looked at Loki with interest. Hearing the familiar voice, Loki, who had high vision, froze for a moment, then turned to look in Levi's direction. It's you, mortal. 35. Mortal? You seem like a guy who can't even beat a mortal. Levi's sneered. Loki's face turned blue and red when he heard this. The scene of being hanged and beaten last time is still vivid in his mind. But now it's different. He has a mind gem scepter, and his strength can be said to be very different from before. Thinking of this, he angrily raised his scepter and shot out magic with all his strength. A dazzling light shot over, and this magic bullet was 10 times stronger than before. However, Levi's just raised one hand, and the next moment, the magic shot was directly swallowed by the power of the Phoenix. How is this possible? Loki couldn't believe it, that his full strength blow didn't have any effect. Without thinking much, he directly used the illusion technique he was best at. In an instant, dozens of Loki appeared in the whole room, directly surrounding Levi's in the middle, and then all the Loki raised their scepters and released magic. Seeing this, Levi's couldn't help laughing out loud. I said, Loki, it seems that you really don't have a long memory. You knows this kind of illusion is useless to me. How dare you use it to make a fool of yourself? 99. The last time we met, Levi's easily cracked Loki's illusion, and then directly hanged him. But I didn't expect to use the same move this time. Humphrey, this time is different. Loki sneered and shot the magic in front of Levi's instantly. In an instant, it seemed that magic was shot from all directions. However, Levi's did not have the slightest sense of dodging, and saw that he was instantly enveloped by the light of magic. And when Levi's was a little surprised, the magic around it wasn't fake. But there are really so many magic attacks. Immediately, he looked at the scepter in Loki's hand, which seemed to be the reason for the Mind Stone, which made his magic much stronger. Chapter 170. Arrogant Loki. Tesseract is taken away. But just like that, Loki's magic still doesn't do him any harm. All magic was absorbed by the power of the Phoenix after approaching him. It can be said that Levi's is already invincible. No matter how strong Loki's magic is, it can't hurt him. It will only give him energy in vain. This is impossible. Seeing that his trump card didn't hurt him in the slightest, Loki panicked. Why is this mortal person in front of him so perverted? Does the so-called god only have this little power? Levi's sneered and walked over. Loki's eyes were full of fear, and at this moment, his eyes suddenly turned to Tesseract. His eyes lit up, and he suddenly thought of a move, and he raised his wand and poked it towards Tesseract. In an instant, the Tesseract was activated, and a beam of light shot at Levi's. In the blink of an eye, Levi's was gone. Vice! Nick Fury shouted when he saw this. He couldn't think that Levi's would disappear directly, whether it was death or something else. Without the super mutant Levi's, how they deal with the evil god Loki is a problem. On the other hand, Levi's has been transferred dozens of kilometers away by the power of Tesseract. After discovering the power of Tesseract just now, the reason why he didn't dodge was to take this opportunity to leave the laboratory. Otherwise, how will Loki get the Tesseract next? How can I open the portal to let the Chitauri army in? As for getting 2 Infinity Stones now, it's totally unnecessary, and the Infinity Stones can't disappear anyway. When Thanos collects the 6 Infinity Stones, he will just grab them. At the same time, military research base. After taking out the toughest enemy with Tesseract, Loki looked smug, then picked up his staff and swooped at the agents present. Hawkeye, who was in charge of the base, couldn't just sit back and ignore this, and saw him rushing up quickly. To deal with a magician, ranged attacks are obviously not as useful as melee. Just get close to him and have the confidence to subdue the magician in front of him. However, he forgot that Loki is not an ordinary magician, and in the world of Marvel, being a magician without melee combat is simply a shame. Even Loki prefers melee combat to magic. Seeing Hawkeye rush up with agility, Loki calmly dropped Hawkeye over his shoulder. I just happen to be missing some right-hand men, and you look pretty good. Loki looked at Hawkeye, and found that a human fighting consciousness in front of him was not bad, and he might be his assistant because of his experience. Then he tapped Hawkeye's chest with his scepter. Facing the Mind Stone scepter, there is no doubt that Hawkeye is directly controlled. However, at this moment, Nick Fury, who fell to the ground and pretended to be dead, took the opportunity to stealthily take down the Tesseract. Then, with the help of his various abilities, he perfectly sneaked in the dark corner and slowly walked towards the gate. If people don't pay attention, they will not find him. But Loki has always cared about Tesseract so much, how could he just sneak away like that? This is my thing, vile thief. This is not your thing, Loki. Is S.H.I.E.L.D going to war with Earth? Nick Fury seemed to want to use the war to force the other side to give up Tesseract. After learning about the Earth and the magicians guarding the Earth last time, Nick Fury has some confidence as an Earth person. At least in the face of aliens, not so passive. Not to mention the big killer Levi's. War? You are right, I am here to bring war. Surrender to me. I am the king from S.H.I.E.L.D, and I bear the fate of S.H.I.E.L.D. Seeking flowers. Loki looks like he's happy to schmooze with Nick Fury. Definitely. He's definitely going to taunt him if Levi's hears it. It's just ridiculous to be just a poor homeless bastard talking about S.H.I.E.L.D. But it is true that there is a war. Definitely. Nick Fury, who didn't know the inside story, believed Loki's words. We Earth did not provoke you, S.H.I.E.L.D. Although he has some confidence, He doesn't want to see the Earth fall into war. Ha ha, ants didn't provoke humans either. Loki tilted his head and smiled. So you treat the Earthlings as ants and want to trample us to death? Nick Fury clenched his fists a little aggrievedly. No, in fact, I have brought you good news. As long as you Earthlings are willing to surrender to me, then you will be protected by the Lord of the Universe. Loki raised his hands to show his ambition. Master of the Universe? It's just you? You can't even beat Nick Fury mocked. Hearing this, Loki was a little angry. Boss, don't say it. You really can't beat that mutant. Let's leave. There's going to be an explosion here soon. 99. At this time, Hawkeye, who had been controlled, interrupted the two's mouth cannon. Loki was a little unhappy. He had a lot of bragging here just now. But fortunately he wasn't a fool. Continued to stay here without saying that a human will come back, and the energy released by the Tesseract will explode. Forget it. Grab the Tesseract and let's go. After that, Loki walked out of the laboratory without looking back. He is still very satisfied with his new subordinate. Chapter 171 Nick Fury's Avengers Plan. Hawkeye got the order, and shot Nick Fury in the heart with his gun, then followed up with another controlled drive. After everyone left, Nick Fury, who just pretended to be dead, got up from the ground. It seems that the controlled Hawkeye has a much lower IQ. He should know that I am wearing a body armor. He looked at his chest and looked a little fortunate, and fortunately, Hawkeye was shot in the heart, otherwise he would be cold. But now is not the time to think about it. This place is about to explode, and if he doesn't escape, he will still be cold. Just after Nick Fury left the underground laboratory, a golden portal appeared in front of his 567. Yo, Chief, I'm back again. What's up with him? This time I'm definitely going to kick him out. Levi's, who was back here, rolled up his sleeves and looked ready for a big fight. Nick Fury's face darkened when he saw this. Where did you go just now? Why did you only appear now? Nick Fury at the moment was full of anger and didn't let it out, and the Tesseract wouldn't have been robbed if Levi's had come back sooner. Levi's narrowed his eyes when he heard the words, Director, I was teleported away by the power of Tesseract just now, and I have worked hard to get back. Nick Fury frowned when he heard the words, and then sighed. He knew that Levi's couldn't be blamed for this. After all, no one thought that the other party would have such means. Moreover, Levi's is his important support now, so now's definitely not the time to shirk responsibility. I trust you, but now we have to get out of here first. Leave? You mean that one's going to explode? It's fine with me. Levi's didn't wait for Nick Fury to respond, and a space moved into the underground research room. At the moment in the underground research room, the huge ball of energy initially released by the Tesseract shone with a dazzling white light. Because the Tesseract was forcibly taken away, the energy became very unstable. It can be seen that it will not take long for this energy to explode. At that time, the entire military research base will be bombed into the sky. But since Levi's is here, he definitely won't let it explode. He has been eyeing this group of energy for a long time. Definitely, this power is nothing more than an appetizer. Use the power of the Phoenix to wrap the energy of the Tesseract, but it only takes a moment, and all the energy is completely absorbed. Only then did Nick Fury walk down with Phil Coulson. Vice, has the explosion been resolved? Phil Coulson looked around the research room vigilantly, but did not find any source of energy. Don't worry, it's resolved. Levi's waved his hand. Nick Fury was also relieved to hear this. Director, what are we going to do next? Phil Coulson asked, looking at Nick Fury. This matter is no longer a simple matter of being robbed, and is likely to evolve into a war between two civilizations. 35. Nick Fury's expression became extremely serious. So it's time for that plan to go live. The stage for the superhero has been set up, and it's time to go to war. Nick Fury is also very decisive. Since he can't escape, he will take the initiative to fight. Maybe after catching Loki, there is still room for recovery. Seeing this, the corner of Levi's mouth couldn't help but rise slightly. Everything is currently being planned, and it seems that he has to make some preparations. Nick Fury left soon after, but before he left he said he wanted to work with the mutants to get through this difficult time together. Levi's definitely complied, and he would have loved the mutants to get involved. On the other side, Nick Fury returned to the Skye carrier and was then connected to the World Security Council. He needs to report his plan to his superiors, and he needs to get approval for that plan. Director Nick Fury, you are so outrageous to have such a dangerous thing behind your back. After learning about the power of Tesseract, the members of the council were not calm. Feelings at home have experienced a crisis of destroying the world. Director Nick Fury, you want to control this unknown force? That's impossible. Director Nick Fury, are you going to emulate Red Skull? It's really outrageous. Huge amounts of screen. The members of the World Security Council all began to criticize Nick Fury. After all, no one wants to die for nothing. However, in the face of the voices of many MPs, Nick Fury has always been very calm. Mr. MP, there is no absolute control of war. So you mean, Asgard went to war with us? As far as I know, the evil god Loki is just a person, and his brother Thor has not accepted our help. Ladies and gentlemen, the evil god Loki represents not only himself, but the whole of Asgard. Thor, we have not seen 4.1 for a long time. And as far as I know, the last destroyer thing was done by the evil god Loki to deal with his brother. I have reason to believe that Thor has been defeated by his brother, so we have no choice. You have to rely on your own strength. Nick Fury's explanation is very clear, and he also believes in Loki's cheating, because the last destroyer was created by Loki to deal with Thor. But now Thor did not see it. But the evil god Loki came to Earth again to make trouble. Doesn't this mean that the battle between the evil god Loki and Thor has been won? Chapter 172. The era of mutants is about to begin. Hearing Nick Fury's words, the members of the World Security Council fell silent because they found that Nick Fury's analysis was not a problem. After all, it was a fact that the evil god Loki appeared in front of them. And the words to inform the Earth are also said from the mouth of the other party. Seeing the relaxed attitude of the members of the World Security Council, Nick Fury finally breathed a sigh of relief. Yet at this moment, another dissenting voice emerged. Director Nick Fury, I just read the list of the so-called Avengers plan. There are not many normal humans on it, and there are even mutants. So your plan is to leave the safety of the world to those monsters fetal? The speaker was Gideon Malik, a veteran of the World Security Council. At the same time, there is another identity behind it, that is, one of the leaders of the 922-headed snakes. Nick Fury nodded when he heard this. I do think they have the power to protect the planet. Director Nick Fury, your joke is not funny at all. Humans use their own weapons to protect the Earth. Gideon Malik laughed. I'm not kidding. Nick Fury looked serious, not joking at all. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not our internal conflict. Loki represents Asgard. You should know the strength of the other's civilization when you see the destroyer. Faced with the invasion of this high-level civilization, our Earth must be united in order to overcome this level. Otherwise the alien colonization will be waiting for the Earth. Think about it here. Nick Fury didn't bother to talk to these counselors, Zug on, and he hung up the communication after he finished speaking. At the moment, he was in a bad mood, and the people in the World Security Council had no sense of crisis at all, but his Avengers plan had been reported anyway. Answer or not, he has to implement it. Thinking of this, he called Phil Coulson. What's wrong with you, Phil Coulson? Director, things are going well. I have informed Tony. He said that he will come soon. And Dr. Banner has also been brought back by Romanoff's agent. Very well, so now only Vice is left. Nick Fury nodded with satisfaction. At present, several people in his Avengers plan have arrived. Only Levi's is left. At the same time, in the Mutant Academy, Levi's woke up the X-Men who had just gone to bed as soon as he got back. At the moment in the war room, the current core members of the X-Men are already here. Cyclops, Jean, Storm, Logan, Lorna, Clarice, Naughty, Shadowcat, Lauren, and Skye. And even Professor X and Magneto and Mystique are here. As for Clarice and Little Naughty, because their strengths have been raised to the level of 4th level mutants, they were promoted from alternate team members to full-fledged X-Men in advance. For this reason, everyone is envious. After all, directly raising the strength level is too heaven-defying. A mutant's ability level is set almost from the moment of having the ability. If you are a 3rd level mutant, you are destined to be a 3rd level mutant for the rest of your life, and it is impossible to upgrade to a 4th level mutant no matter what. Even the ancient mutants like Danke couldn't break through the 5th level mutants, so one can imagine how difficult it is to improve their strength. Definitely can't be too absolute in this situation. After all, the future things can't be said. However, it can be seen that it is almost impossible to upgrade the level of mutants. And Levi's did it. Even Cyclops and Storm envied it. I remember you promised to help me improve last time, Storm joked. And me? I always feel that my claws are not sharp enough. Can you help me improve it first? Logan on the side also came to join in the fun. Now I'm not talking about these things. You should know that my ability consumes a lot, so I need to rest for a while. Levi spread his hands helplessly. Okay then. Storm shrugged nonchalantly. Okay, let's get down to business now. Levi's face became serious. It won't be long before aliens invade the Earth, and then the whole of New York will be turned into a battlefield. The time is when we mutants will become the saviors, and then with the X-Gene awakening potion, then the real era of mutants will begin. 95. Hearing these exciting words, everyone present was a little excited. Everyone wonders what a glorious age the age of mutants will be. By the way, Clarice, are you all proficient in the armor you got from Tortoise? Levi's asked Clarice and the Little Naughty. Last time, I got more than 10 sets of steel armor from Tony's side, and then let the Little Naughty mutants who won the top 10 in the super ability competition express their customization requirements. Now these armors have been delivered a month ago. The Little Naughty and the others suddenly looked excited when they heard the words. Vice, you can rest assured, we have all mastered our own exclusive battle armor, but unfortunately after our strength has been upgraded to the 4th level mutant, the effect of the battle armor on us has become smaller, but some auxiliary functions still good, like flying. The 3rd level mutants and the 4th level mutants are a process of qualitative change. Some super abilities will have obvious disadvantages when the 3rd level mutants are used, which makes the mutants unable to control. For example, The naughty energy absorption cannot be controlled. But after becoming a level 4 mutant, there is no such drawback, and the little naughty is very skilled in opening the energy absorption ability. Therefore, the effect of steel armor on them is reduced. Chapter 173 Meeting Captain America. Steve. At present, the combat power that the X-Men can dispatch is only more than 10 people, but it don't underestimate these 10 people. They are all 3rd level mutants, and there are even many 4th level mutants. This is definitely a terrifying force, even comparable to the peak days of the Avengers. Vice, let's just say it when we need it. My old bones can see the arrival of the mutant era, and it can be regarded as a wish. Magneto spoke up in support. That's right, Vice, if you have anything, just leave it to us, while the people of our generation can still help. Professor X also smiled, and he was often proud of Levi's because he changed the situation of mutants, and he pushed the real world into the era of mutants. You two are not old enough to walk. Don't worry, I will let you help this time. Levi smiled and waved his hand. The scale of this New York battle is not small, and there will definitely be a place for Professor X and Magneto to play. To let the world know the power of mutants, and to accept mutants at the same time. This is his purpose. Soon Nick Fury called to inquire about the situation and asked Phil Coulson to pick them up. Levi's was a little weird at first, but not so weird after seeing Captain America on the plane. Apparently Nick Fury wanted to familiarize himself with Captain America. Nice to meet you. I heard that the director was able to excavate an antique in the glacier some time ago. I think it is you. 35. Levi's looked at Captain America in front of him and took the initiative to make a joke as a trick to Raw. Steve wasn't angry at what he said. Perhaps to you, I am indeed an antique. 35. Definitely not. Mr. Steve is a hero of ugly people. Yes, he is a hero, and I'm still your fan. Phil Coulson is a big fan of Captain America, and it took him a few years to collect a set of out-of-print Captain America cards. And his dream is for Steve to be able to sign his collection of cards, making this set of cards truly out of print. Just as Phil Coulson was about to ask Captain America to sign him, Captain America turned his attention to Levi's. Actually, there were mutants traveling in my time, but few really appeared in front of people's eyes. I didn't expect that there are so many mutants today. 35. Speaking of this, Steve sighed a little. I've heard about the power of mutants. If the Roaring Assault team I led had such powerful warriors, I'm afraid we wouldn't have worked so hard. Ha ha ha. We have indeed grown more, but it has also made ordinary people more fearful, and they even treat us as aliens. Levi's laughed mockingly. Steve was a little silent when he heard this, because he didn't know if he would also be regarded as an alien. After all, he was not technically an ordinary person anymore. Have you seen Superman comics? Superman comics should have come out in your era. Levi's continued, if there is a Superman on Earth, then he is a hero, but if there are many heroes, then Superman is become a threat, because humans fear the power of the Superman. But you're different, you're human just like us, Steve said seriously. Steve has never represented an ugly country. Although he has the title of Captain America, Captain America represents the true spirit of equality and freedom. It is precisely because of this that Steve did not sign the Sokovia Agreement and became a fugitive. And that's what makes Steve respected and loved. Levi's admires Steve very much, definitely. That doesn't mean he approves of Steve very much. In his opinion, Steve is just a virgin that makes some people admire. So after hearing this, he didn't say anything. Director Nick Fury told me before to prepare me for this new world, and I'm glad I'm still needed when I'm an old-timer. Steve looked rejoiced. After all, it has been more than 70 years, almost a century, and he often has the feeling that something is wrong. Mr. Steve, please don't say that, we still need you. Phil Coulson was the first to stand up for support when he saw his idol so emotional, and Steve always felt a little weird about Phil Coulson, a fan who looked older than him. However, the atmosphere of the aircraft class finally became more active. Vice, you haven't introduced these two to me yet? After getting to know everyone, Steve called his name politely. Oh, I forgot to introduce you. Levi's patted his forehead and then introduced, this is Lorna, this is Katie, and they are all mutants. Very happy to meet all of you. Steve gave a big smile and held out his hand. We are also very happy to meet you, the legendary hero. 35. Lorna and Katie shook hands with him respectively, and they were also very curious about the legendary character Steve, Li Wangzhou. After all, this generation has heard of Captain America's heroic deeds from childhood. I want to ask what their relationship is with you? Captain America looked at the two women who were next to Levi's and was a little curious about their relationship. Well I thought you saw it. Levi's smiled and stretched his arms around Lorna and Katie's waist. Oh, I can see that, but can you still have two wives at the same time? Steve looked suspiciously at Phil Coulson beside him. Well, there is no such rule. Phil Coulson shrugged helplessly. Okay then. Steve, who got this answer, was a little envious, and at the same time thought of the woman in his heart. Chapter 174 The Phoenix Force Fragment in Natasha Romanoff. The plane landed on the Skye carrier. Several people prepared to get off the plane. Wait, I still have some things to do. 35. Phil Coulson is still obsessed with the autograph thing. At this moment, however, Natasha Romanoff suddenly appeared on the plane. Phil Coulson, the chief has asked you to meet him right away. Phil Coulson was stunned for a moment, then nodded helplessly. Okay then. 5. The opportunity to get Captain America's autograph was gone, and he was in a very bad mood. What's wrong with him? Steve looked suspiciously at Phil Coulson as he walked away in despair. Probably didn't ask for your autograph. Natasha Romanoff said hilariously. Many people know that Phil Coulson is a Captain America fan, and he even used his S.H.I.E.L.D. relationship to collect cards. Steve's expression was a little weird. That's when Natasha Romanoff looked at Levi's, who hadn't seen each other for a long time since the last time they met and danced at Tony's cocktail party. And at the moment Natasha Romanoff looked at him in a weird way. How? Levi's looked at Natasha Romanoff suspiciously. Nothing, it's time for us to get off the plane. 35. Natasha Romanoff gave him a wide smile, then turned away. This strange behavior made him a little strange. At this time, the phoenix in his body seemed to move. Phoenix, what's wrong with you? Vice, I can feel that the woman in front of me also has fragments of the power of the phoenix in her body, but she should not be your woman. 5. What? You're saying that Natasha Romanoff also has a fragment of the Phoenix Force in her body? How is that possible? When Levi's heard Phoenix's words, his face was stunned. He doesn't remember that he left a fragment of the power of the Phoenix in Natasha Romanoff's body, let alone a fragment of the power of the Phoenix. The two just met once. At most, it's just hugging and dancing. Phoenix, is it the Force fragment of the Phoenix, XMan, you left behind? 35. No, it's not, but it's very strange. This power of the Phoenix should come from us. Are you sure it's from us? Levi's frowned. He couldn't remember when he had left a fragment of the Phoenix Force in Natasha Romanoff, but there was absolutely no way the Phoenix could deceive him. What has actually happened? Some of him didn't understand, so he wanted to use telepathy to check Natasha Romanoff's memory. But as soon as he was ready to do it, he gave up the idea. When dealing with friends, he generally will never privately probe the thoughts of each other's mind. This is his principle. Hey, Dr. Banner? As soon as I got off the plane, I saw Dr. Banner. Levi's smiled and made a move. Raw. It's you, I remember you. Dr. Banner was stunned for a moment when he saw Levi's, and then he remembered what he hated last time. That time, because of the use of inhibitory agents, his strength was greatly reduced after he transformed into Hulk, but his sanity was not suppressed by Hulk. So he can clearly remember the last time Levi's beat and hated. It's great to meet you. Listening to them teaching you, can I be called that too? Dr. Banner enthusiastically came up and shook his hand. Haha, definitely yes, that sounds very kind, doesn't it? Levi's laughed. By the way, I recently studied the Hulk and found that the Hulk still has weaknesses, such as common human joints, temples, nose and lower body, etc. The last one can be ignored. In short, if you want to subdue if you want to do it, it's best to pick these weak spots. Dr. Banner suddenly talked about the Hulk's weakness, which made Levi's a little strange. So, Dr. Banner, why are you telling me this? Does he say that these weaknesses are still needed to subdue the Hulk? It's just a joke. Because they said they wanted me to help, but I feel like I'll only do a disservice to me. Fortunately I heard that you will come too, otherwise, in case the Hulk goes berserk. Dr. Banner looked worried, obviously afraid that the Hulk would cause trouble for everyone. Now that there is a person who can easily subdue hatred, it is not a problem to subdue Hulk, so he will take the initiative to talk about this. But don't worry, it doesn't matter if you can't remember the weakness I just said. I have recorded Hulk's weakness in this, and you can take it out at any time. Dr. Banner said and took out a small notebook. Levi's took over the small book with a weird face, and as expected, it recorded Hulk's various weaknesses and moves and habits. Dr. Banner is the only one who can teach others how to beat him like this. I hope you can take a good look. I heard that Iron Man will also come. Maybe I can discuss with him to discuss the development of armor that can subdue me. Dr. Banner touched his chin and said. When Levi's heard the words, the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. Could it be that the anti-Hulk armor was born because of this? Hey, Dr. Banner, I've heard of you. At this time, Steve stepped forward and enthusiastically made a move. Raw. Oh. What did I see? A legendary hero, Mr. Steve. I'm actually a fan of you too. Dr. Banner also moved Raw a little excitedly. Okay, we should go in. Seeing that Dr. Banner kept talking excitedly, Natasha Romanoff could only interrupt the two of them. Chapter 175 Captain America and Loki's first fight. A group of people came to a conference room. Nick Fury is already here waiting. I've brought everyone here, Chief, but Tony said he'll be getting his steel armor ready, so he'll be late. 35 Natasha Romanoff reported the situation. Yeah, Nick Fury nodded. His eyes swept across the crowd. Captain America, Hulk, Iron Man, plus Levi's, the current Avengers are only these people. Definitely, Natasha Romanoff and Phil Coulson can also be counted as Avengers, but they are too weak to fight. And Captain America is Nick Fury's most suitable person to be the core of the Superman team. After all, Many people here grew up listening to Captain America's heroic stories. As for why not let the powerful Levi's be the captain, it must be that Nick Fury is more afraid of mutants. Without thinking too much, he looked at everyone and said, "Welcome everyone, now let's discuss how to save the world." The next day, having discussed last night, Nick Fury has decided, a good battle plan. But how to find Loki himself is a big problem, because Loki has a psychic staff, even telepathy can't sense where he is. Therefore, it is useless even if everyone is in a hurry. Night, Stuttgart, Germany, on Kuning Street. Loki finally finds the final element needed to open the portal, and then asks Hawkeye to deliver the element to Dr. Selvig. In this way, the portal can be opened normally. But if you want to open the portal smoothly, you still need to lure away those annoying guys. Loki thought for a moment and changed into his formal Asgard attire. Now it was time for him to appear in the sight of the midgets. Came to a high-level dance not far away. Loki drove the upper class who were dancing gracefully to the square. "Kneel down for me." Using illusion, Loki surrounded everyone at the dance by himself. "Kneel down for me. Do you understand?" Seeing that these people were disobedient, Loki roared angrily, and then shot a magic wand in his hand, blasting a deep hole in the ground beside him. Under the threat of death, many high-ranking people had to kneel down. Loki nodded in satisfaction, then started his speech. "That's good. Return to your original face, because you are a group of slaves who need to be ruled, and you think that you are noble by wearing a decent one." In the face of Loki's incessant talk, the people around them kneeling on the ground dared not speak. However, an inconspicuous old man suddenly stood up. "No one will want to humiliate you, you lunatic." "Mad? It seems that you have not realized who you are facing. Remember, I am the noble king of Asgard." Loki said that the staff had already turned on the old man, obviously to kill the chicken and set an example. However, at this moment, in the sky, a Kunt-style fighter flew over quickly. Immediately after, a man holding a shield jumped out of the plane. Amidst everyone's startled sound, the man landed firmly on the ground. "You know, the last time I met a man who wanted to step on someone's feet." 35 Steve landed handsomely and looked at Loki calmly. The result must have been that person succeeded. Loki said that the staff in his hand turned the target, and then a magic beam shot out. "You're wrong. That person failed," Steve said and raised his shield. The magic beam hit the vibranium shield and bounced back. Maybe it was because his attack was bounced back and he was prepared, and Loki easily avoided the bounced magic. "Seeking flowers." "The shield is good," Loki said and glanced at the plane. "As long as the man didn't come, then he can rest assured." However, the fact hit him in the face. When he looked over, Levi's on the plane waved his hand playfully and made a move to roar. "Don't underestimate me." Saying that, Steve raised his shield and rushed over. "Stupid." 35. Loki looked back at Steve with disdain, then raised his staff and fired another spell. "Hey, what are you doing?" This time, Steve was a little confused, because the target of this magic was his feet, which was completely out of the way. "Don't you think your shield is too small?" Loki sneered. He was not a fool, he kept hitting the shield even though he knew that the shield could reflect magic. After all, the shield is only so big that it is impossible to protect the entire body. In the face of Loki who didn't play cards according to the routine, Steve was beaten constantly to dodge the magic, and he couldn't fight in close quarters at all. The shield in his hand didn't even dare to leave his hand. Steve didn't want to try the feeling of being hit by magic. This scene almost made Levi's laugh out loud. Seeing that Steve was beaten and could not fight back, Natasha Romanoff was also a little anxious. She looked at Dr. Banner, and then at Levi's. "Vice, is it time for you to take action?" Dr. Banner must not be allowed to take action unless it is a last resort. After all, it is very difficult to take back the Hulk once he comes out, so Levi's is the best candidate. However, Levi's shook his head. "Don't worry, someone has already shot." "Who?" As soon as Natasha Romanoff's voice fell, he saw a flash of fire in the sky, and a saucy BGM suddenly started on the Kunt-style fighter they were in. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me, link is in the description. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.